Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible, where we are going to finish the Job.
Ah, yes. Yes. Where would Job be without some job puns?
I listen, I've always loved it when a good Job is finished. Every time I finish a Job, I feel so good afterwards.
Well, they're popping out a bunch of new kids at the end of this, so apparently he did finish at least a couple times.
Okay.
There were a few Jobs involved.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this book does have a happy ending.
We're all going to hell. I love it. But as I said before we were running, we left where we left off. God was being a dramatic bitch, so we're just going to cut right in with God continuing to be a dramatic bitch because that is his thing, and we don't kink shame.
This is all very exciting because we got at least one very cool reference coming up. And then, oh man, you know what? We should have seen if we could have gotten Kip on here. Maybe if one of us harasses him enough. But
why was
anyone who has his number,
Chrissy. Wouldn't it have been nice if Chrissy was on any part of this?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, Chrissy.
Yeah, she's been doing stuff.
I know.
But I remember earlier on in while talking about this book, Kip was mentioning the fact that he gets this new family, and he's like, well, it might have been like the original family, right? Just they have come back.
Just a second, Peter.
Oh yeah.
Why are we seeing only Aaron?
Yeah, we're all talking.
I was busy getting all the chats already. That
he was doing a good job.
Yes, I was doing my Job,
and he was almost finished.
Yeah. So it would have been pretty cool to have Kip back on here to talk about that, so we could maybe argue about who's who. But for the most part, I think that the best stuff we're gonna say is gonna be on the very first verse of the day. Because, oh boy.
Before we dive into that, I've got a couple of chats that have already lined up, and I'm going to go ahead and read those.
Good for you.
So, Shut Up Matt says, props to Aaron for continuing to have these many interesting people on this channel. And I'm really happy about that too, by the way. I just want to share that with all of y'all. I really enjoy these. I love this panel. So let's see.
My God, what a kiss ass.
Yeah, I know, right? Let's see. I was hooked.
This is one thing that has kept me sane through a lot of messed up years. So I'm glad we're here too. Sorry, go ahead.
So, let's see. Where was I? Continuing to bring this many. Okay, let's see. I was hooked on the concubine vid earlier. And more of this, referring to yesterday's show. Okay, and then Sailman offers $5. Thank you very much. Aaron, what do you think of the new 2026 Indian Chief Vintage? I think it looks cool. This is not the venue to talk about that, but I want one, and I want to mod the fuck out of it. I want to put a king and queen seat. I want to take off the tractor seat, put a king and queen on there. And but anyway, we'll never mind.
We can't talk about bikes and snakes on this channel. That's just not allowed.
Yeah, it's a motorcycle. It's 116 cubic inch stripped down, kind of like it goes back to the old 1946 body style. It really looks like that, but instead of a 1200 cc, they put in a 1900 cc engine.
Woo!
I don't know what any
ridiculous.
of that means.
I love it.
Means you feel the power
how you say
away.
this is not the venue, and then just keep talking about motorcycles. See,
Well,
that's what I said.
I didn't want Lawrence to be confused.
It's very considerate of you.
And then Shut Up Matt adds, oh, by the way, I just bought an Indian Chief vintage, but I bought one from 2014 because they discontinued it, and I wanted the one they made then. So I bought that. And now they have this other thing, but the other thing isn't set up for passengers, and I have to have the passenger. And I really love mine. So anyway, enough of that. Don't ask irrelevant questions about stuff I'm interested in. Shut Up Matt says, also, Aaron has been lauded in...
Lauded?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing this. Lauded on Vice
Rhino.
Vice Rhino. It's a YouTuber.
Okay, Vice Rhino's Watering Hole channel for having a very pleasant voice to listen to. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, and I did actually want to mention something to you, Aaron, before I forget. So my recent video is kind of a response to you. It's not actually a response to you. It's a response to a person you had on 2 years ago, and it's been living rent-free in my head until I made this video. So I did take a clip from your from the show you did with them, but that's about it.
Well, fill me in.
Oh, well, if you say so. No, no, it's so do you remember, probably not, because this is just like another random guy that you talked to, but it was this theist who was laying on his bed the whole time or something, or like on his couch, and he was talking about the creation of the biblical canon, and I mean, you were telling him, in the moment that, like, well, Rome didn't like create the canon to control people. Like, no one agrees with that. And first, like, he Googled it or something, and he's like, oh, well, looks like they were talking about this stuff back in the Senate of Rome in 382, and I'm like, well, he said Pope Damascus, but he misread it because it's Pope Damasus. But I was like, what? Why have I never heard of this thing? So then for 2 years, on and off, I was reading about this council and what we could actually know about the council. Bullshit, entirely bullshit story that was later attached to the actual council. That's what the video's about, how that got attached. But there was no canon stuff there. But that's the video.
Okay. And thank you for that. And do we need to include a link?
No, you don't need to. It doesn't even really matter.
Don't mind then. I'm going to start reading, and I'm going to read.
I just wanted to say something, that I have big news.
Yes.
Yes. Tomorrow I'm going to submit my thesis.
Ooh, good for you.
Yes.
About time.
2 grueling years. Starting with war and probably finishing with another war. So yeah.
Proud of you.
Very happy to transition from the academic period to finally working and maybe being a bit more hedonistic than previously. So yeah.
A paycheck is a nice thing.
That's a good thing.
Paycheck is a nice thing. Yeah.
Also, Lawrence.
So yeah.
People in chat are saying, don't care what Lawrence said. We want a link to the video. So.
Okay, you know what? Well, I can't post a link to anything.
Well, post it in the private chat. I'll post it.
All right. Fine, making me do work.
All right, and then
I know. You have to copy paste. You poor little
It's really difficult. My little tiny hands can't copy paste.
And while he's doing that, I'm going to read Joe. What are we on? No, I've got 39 up here. What am I thinking?
No. It's 41.
41.
Yeah, I don't know why I had. Okay.
Because that's the start of God being a dramatic bitch.
Yeah, there we go. Job 41. Canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which you lettest down? Because I'm reading from the bestest version of the Bible, the Shakespearean. Canst thou put a hook in his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? Will he make many supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? I love King James God. It's just funny.
Mhm.
Wilt thou play with him as with a bird? Or wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? What does that mean?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Don't worry.
Shall
We'll
the
tie him up as a pet
companions
for your
make,
little girl.
shall the
Yeah.
companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Canst thou fill his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? Sounds painful. Lay thine hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do no more. Behold!
Behold, we have to start saying it. Sorry.
Behold!
The hope
Tomer,
of him is in vain.
hold on. Tomer,
No.
I think you have to. It's a law now.
Tomer. You started this.
I didn't start anything.
You gotta say behold.
You're gaslighting me again.
You gotta say behold.
Shut, not you.
If you
him.
don't, I'll eat the rest of your cookies.
Hen. There, I said it.
You know what? Close enough.
It's Hebrew behold.
I know what it means.
Well, he
No, you
said
don't.
it.
I do. Yeah, I do.
No, you don't.
I
No, you
do.
don't.
I mean, it's one of the words. that's
Simone
translated
forced me
as
to learn that
behold.
one.
No?
Hen
Well,
hen or hene.
Hine, yeah. Or Vayehi as well? Or no, that's
No, he is no. It came to pass.
Tomer
When it
doesn't
came to
work
pass.
and play well with others. That's why he needs to be
Mm.
disciplined.
Yeah,
Do
tell me
I
about
have to
it.
get
Ha,
out
ha,
the
ha.
special crop? Is that what we're saying? I need to
No,
just...
no. Only
All right.
I
an
don't know if I have it
authoritarian
here.
voice. An
Without
authoritarian
any
voice is
repetition
fine.
from the rest of the panel. Behold, the hope of him
Behold!
is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that dare stir him up, who then is able to stand before me. Who hath prevented me that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportion. I think this chapter should be read in Tim Curry's voice.
Yes.
Who can discover the face of his garment, or who can come to him with his double bridle? Who can open the doors of his faith? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together with a close seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together that they cannot be sundered. By his sneezings a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks to fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth, and his neck remaineth strength. And sorrow is turned into joy before him. The flakes of his flesh are joined together. They are firm in themselves. They cannot be moved. His heart is firm as stone. Yeah, as
Yeah, his
hard
heart.
as a piece of the nether millstone. When he raiseth up himself, The mighty are afraid. By reason of breakings, they purify themselves. The sword of him that layeth at him cannot hold. The spear, the dart, nor the habergeon. He esteemeth iron as straw, and brass as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Slingstones are turned with him into stubble. Darts are counted as stubble as he laugheth at the shaketh of the spear. Sharp stones are under him. He spreadeth sharp pointed things upon the mire. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. He maketh a path to shine before him. One would think that the deep to be hoary. Upon the earth there is not his like, who is made without fear. He beholdeth all things. He is a king over all the children of pride.
So, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. So this is
It's a
taken over-
crocodile. I guessed it.
Oh my god, don't even start. This is this is from
Denial
the
monitor.
essentially, I'm gonna call it what it is, an ancient dragon slaying myth, which existed in a lot of cultures in that time period, and for Leviathan specifically, we can most closely relate it to Lotan, the serpent in the Ugaritic texts. So I think the best book that has been written so far on it, on the topic, has probably been Robert Miller's The Dragon, the Mountain, and the Nations. And I've recommended it on the show before, but I'm going to do it again,
Please do.
just like Goofy does in that murder trial. So yeah, I've already said that Leviathan would be equivalent to Lotan, and there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that kind of points to that, and it's more than just this. This description is one thing, but if we turn to other parts of the text, we can see it in clear detail. So, for example, in Psalm 74, they have the defeat of the dragon myth, essentially, of the dragon and Yam specifically. So of Yam, sorry. So the sea. But there's also the Leviathan, which would be equivalent to Lotan. And then, especially if we go to Isaiah 27, Isaiah 27:1 is actually really cool. And it can help us understand this because it goes back even further than that. So in Isaiah 27:1, it says, "On that day, the Lord with his cruel and great strong sword will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, and he will kill the dragon that is in the sea." And even further, guess where that's from?
Do tell.
Oh, shocker, it's from Canaanite texts. So here is,
Yeah.
for anyone that's interested in the citation, KTU
Which nobody is.
1.5, 1 through 4. Though you smote Litan, the wriggling serpent, finished off the writhing serpent, encircler with 7 heads, the skies will be hot, they will shine. So, Ugaritic text, great, isn't that wonderful? So there is a lot of pieces of this myth that are scattered throughout the Bible, and here is just a very, very long description using one of the names of this serpent. So I love it. I think this is cool shit.
I love it too, but I creationists screw themselves over so badly because they go to all this effort to try and pretend that this is describing a dinosaur and to try and invent scenarios where dinosaurs would breathe fire, because everything in the Bible has to be taken literally. Apparently, when Jesus said to be like doves, he meant you should lay eggs. So what do I know? Yeah. So, but this is absolutely an expression of all of these ancient myths and just something people would have been aware of. And yes, absolutely could have been inspired at least partially by a crocodile, because that thing is scary as shit. But the ancient myths of, going back to Sumer and Tiamat, the idea that the world was made by the slaying of a great beast greater than, we could imagine, and cut in half, and that maybe there were two beasts. So one is killed at the creation of the world, and the other is destroyed at the end, or comes back for vengeance and destroys the world. All these kinds of things. These are themes. And obviously, Lawrence, you have one far closer to the source that Judean authors would have, been familiar with. But it's absolutely a trope in that whole area of the world, and different forms of it exist in different places in that area, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And they throw all that actual history and scholarship away to try and pretend that T-Rex was going around lighting things on fire with his magic breath.
That sounds
I've seen
cool,
the most amusing arguments to try to squeeze dinosaurs into like not just the Bible, but in all ancient texts, like with who is Marco Polo. Marco Polo wrote this thing where he was actually describing reticulated pythons completely, and somehow the young Earth creationists twisted that into Tyrannosaurus.
Good Lord.
Yeah, they didn't just describe the length; they described the girth, right? And the measurements are accurate for a large reticulated python. Is it like 24 feet and however many around? I forget what the measurement was, but it is the girth of the thing. We can't be talking about a T-Rex with this thing. No. But they are desperate to try to squeeze dinosaurs in there somehow.
And it always requires the most simple-minded and just contorted, absurd view of the text. You lose all the richness of history and mythology. You lose all the actual scientific data that could tell you anything about reality. But you also learn anything that can be, you lose anything that can be gained by studying a people's mythology, by studying the stories that they told and how that reflected their view of the world. Everything that could be taken from this text or from associated texts in understanding ourselves and our story as human beings, all of it, screw all that. Magic Jesus on a dinosaur with an AK-47. Like, the lack of appreciation. Don't get me wrong, if you want to tell a story to appeal to a kid, sure, put Jesus on riding a T-Rex. But like, I cannot comprehend the lack of love of learning and knowledge and truth. And I don't understand it. I don't know.
I remember Bob Bacher was he was he was one of the paleontologists that inspired the paleontologist character in Jurassic Park, the first one. Bob Bacher was actually an advisor for the show. And he's an interesting character because he's got long hair and a beard, and he wears the beat up old cowboy hat. He looks like a prospector from the 1800s, but he has multiple PhDs from Ivy League universities, which is kind of a weird paradox. And the paradox doesn't stop there, because while he was a pioneer paleontologist, he was also a Pentecostal preacher. But one of the things that he wrote in his book Bones, Bible, and Creation was that to read Genesis as if it were history is to pervert the meaning of the text. I'm paraphrasing there because I can't remember exactly how he said it.
Yeah, and I've seen that with a lot of people. People of a more mature faith understand that this infantile nonsense degrades their faith, but they're always constantly running to me saying, well, they're not true Christians. I'm like, no. You tell them they're not true Christians. You deal with this internally, or it's going to be shame to your name forever, and should be. Deal with your own shit. Stop trying to convince the rest of us.
And to that point, all those people who want to say that anybody is a true Christian or they're not a Christian or whatever, give me the fucking criteria. How do you know whether one person is a Christian and one person isn't?
That's very easy. You see, the only person who truly knows is God, who sees the heart and knows all. So he knows how sincere they were in their repentance. And only he will know, which is why when you get to the end of the world, he will say, to those who say, "Did we not prophesy in your name and in your name cast out demons?" He will say, "Away from me, I never knew you, depart evildoers," because the criteria can never be clear, because then people would know what they were talking about and wouldn't be in a constant state of suspense, begging for reassurance.
But the only person who knows is God and me, because God talks to me. And so the next guy that God talks to has a completely different opinion because God tells something different to that other guy.
Well, Jesus said to judge a tree by its fruit. So they just have to disqualify all the fruit that makes them look bad.
When you make a statement as to whether or not someone is or isn't a Christian, you have to have criteria that we can check so that we can know. But the Christians know that shit doesn't make any sense. They can't defend that position. So it's wonderful whenever it comes up. When I've been on a show, and I have been a few times, where some Christian will say, "Well, Catholics aren't real Christians, or Mormons aren't real Christians." And okay, how do you know that? What's the criteria? Oh, I don't want to get into it. Yeah, I know you don't want to get into that because you're full of shit. You know it.
Yeah. At one end of the spectrum, they're like, "Oh, Christianity is the most popular religion. There's so many of us." And then on the other hand, you've got like, well, maybe 40,000 people go to heaven. Something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the Catholics aren't real Christians crowd. They're Catholics are Christians when they inflate the numbers so they can be important, but not real Christians when it comes to actually handing out salvation because the Pope is evil.
Actually, I
This
think
Pope
Isaac
actually
was
isn't too
referring
bad.
to the Jehovah's Witnesses there, because one of their doctrine said that there's only gonna be
144,000.
144,000.
Yeah.
I bet
That's
you that
correct.
there is a
They had to come
Christian
up with
sect.
two-tier salvation.
Isn't it Calvinism as well? Sorry.
I firmly believe that there is a Christian sect that doesn't believe that Jesus is anything like the Messiah or other stuff like that.
I think those
there's
are
some modern
Unitarians,
ones.
actually.
I mean, if all the contradictions already exist, this must exist as well.
Yeah, they came up with everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Or it hasn't risen for it's something like that. I don't know.
All right. So we have no commentary on this chapter.
No,
so we're
we
going to
don't.
jump over
We
to the
don't.
next one.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Sure. Yes. So, unfortunately, the next two chapters are also some of the longest. So, yeah.
Well, I'm here for it.
Do we have
No,
like
you're
a
not.
clear connection, I guess, between this fire-breathing fish, which and the European dragon?
It's a
Like,
Nile crocodile.
I mean, yes, like there is a connection somewhere in the past, and I think, I mean, the book I referenced before, kind of alludes to that connection. But actually, hold on, I think Aaron, didn't you have someone on that wrote a book about this specific thing, about like the origin of dragons?
I did, and it was interesting because I was able to share some things with him that he hadn't considered, and he changed his mind about his interpretation in his book when he was talking to me, specifically about the Marco
Nice.
Polo thing that I just brought up.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
I think Aaron has said it
they're somewhere related down the line, when eventually it becomes, separated from these more mythic contexts. They're totally separated. At this point, it's already been totally separated from the chaos comp.
Yeah.
So somewhere down the line they're related.
Yeah. I mean, I think Aaron spoke about how like the European dragon, it comes from like the tale of Saint George and the killing of
St. George and the Dragon. Yeah,
Saint
and
George
he
and
killed
the
the
monitor
monitor
lizard.
lizard.
And if you
Yeah.
look at the
But-
earliest depictions, it's a monitor lizard, and as it goes through time, the
When you can see how
the
the
tongue
forked
gets split.
tongue. Yeah,
Yeah.
the forked tongue image, and then they start
I
turning
wonder
it into
if
flames.
I'm wondering if this part of the Bible influenced that change as well.
It did certainly, because it makes reference. While it does describe, and we'll see that in a moment, while this chapter, depending on your translation, does clearly describe a crocodile, there are other parts of the Bible that just that add or embellish all of these other attributes, like flame breath. And this would be older than the St. George thing. So we can't blame all of the fire breathing on the fork of the tongue, but it does influence how you could read the forked tongue as a fire breath if you already knew this story and other stories like it.
That makes
Where
I think it all
the fire breath is often equated to venom.
right, like with the seraphim, the burning ones.
Yeah. So when the snake bites you, you get all this extreme burning pain, and so that's where they come from, the fire breath.
That sounds lovely. I mean, I think the forked tongue illustrates how these things become a big fish story, but also, let's be honest, fire-breathing dragons just sound really freaking cool, and I don't think we need that much of an explanation for why we would come up with cool shit for our stories. Because
dragons are the coolest animal that never existed.
Exactly.
I do have
Sometimes
a thing that
it's
like
just fun to
people say.
enjoy cool shit.
I do think that people use the word dragon like for lots of different things because they have some reptilian feature, and then they sort of connect it and be like, oh, everybody has dragon stories, and it's like, yeah, they all have stories that we call dragons, but they aren't necessarily connected, right? There isn't a connection between Quetzalcoatl and European dragon, and with Lotan, and with an Asian dragon, the long dragon.
And while they are usually reptilian, they're not all of them. I have Falcor, the luck dragon, right here at my feet.
They're not all reptile, right? Especially like a lot of times the Asian dragons are quite mammalian at the same time.
Sometimes, yeah, some of them look mammalian, some of them are more serpent-like, but they're also intelligent and wise and
They
not
have
necessarily
hair. They have retractable claws. They have whiskers.
Antlers.
They have differentiated teeth. Asian dragons are mammals.
Yes,
I
we
do
call
like
them dragons, and so by calling them all dragons, we're kind of putting them in the same box. But
Didn't you do a video on dragon taxonomy, Aaron?
I did. I did a speech of Draxonomy that I gave at Dragon Con.
I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Tomer, are you going to quit holding up the show?
Comments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a few.
Let me see. Where was the last one I read here? Okay, there we go. So Shut Up Madigan says, can Lawrence confirm nails and books were not distinguished? Nails and hooks were not distinguished in ancient words. God's hooks, Gadzooks, was talking of the nails and the cross.
To my knowledge, that is true. That Gadzooks is God's hooks, shortened. Yeah.
But it's referring to nails.
Slang. Okay, that was an old. I mean, if you read Shakespeare, you'll get the profanities tearing up the body of Christ, God's blood and God's bones and God's this and that. So,
and then the Marizuki, 1983, says, can Aaron Ra debunk long story short? What is long story short?
It's a creationist channel that puts out videos in a cartoon style. Jackson Wheat has taken them on several times already. It's
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure you've already debunked all their points in your various videos.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the systemic classification of life.
Thank you kindly. And later this afternoon, I will have out another phylogeny video on Alpha Metatarsalia. Been working on it for days. It's amazing that it took 4 days to edit the fucking thing. Just to edit it, 4 days.
That surprised me.
Is that just dinosaurs?
Well, that's what you get for being thorough.
You would think so, but I'm also doing Dinosauromorpha and Pterosauromorpha and Ornithodira and so
Okay.
Ave Metatarsalia has all these other subgroups that we have to include, like Aphanosaurs and so forth.
This is a bunch of stuff that people don't really know about within Archosauria that aren't crocodilians.
Yes, exactly.
Ah.
Distinguishing Crocodilomorpha or Pseudotsuchia, distinguishing Pseudotsuchia from Ave Metatarsalia,
Mm.
and covering all the little basal stuff in there. And it's not as dry as it sounds. I quite like what I've got. I was up until like 4 a.m. working on it and realized I couldn't finish it. So, and I couldn't finish it last night. So I've been working on it. And when I say all day, I don't mean 8-hour days. I mean literally all day for like 3 or 4
Hopefully
days.
some of the programs could run in the background.
Yeah.
you
So
could
what
eat
what
something.
chat was I at now?
Uh,
Illyria the Free says Lilith liberated. The Pope.
I think you missed one.
Oh,
Yeah,
did
you missed one, Aaron.
Yes. Serial Tube 3 says, is there a context to history we can set this myth in? Is it authentically Hebrew? And can we place it properly in a time period or location? That's a good question, actually.
That is a very good question.
So the origins of the dragon slaying myth go back very far. In fact, it's probably Proto-Indo-European, because there are some similarities in Hindu texts. So it goes back very far. This specific iteration of it is a later one. So, and I would say that, when you say authentically Hebrew, I mean, like, they took this stuff from the culture that surrounded them, but they kind of changed it for their own purposes, which is why, like,
So
in later
pseudo-Hebrew.
Well, okay,
maybe they're asking if it's
That's
like
how all
if
cultures
there's a
form.
Persian or Babylonian like exile direct influence as opposed to, the being in a Canaanite region and just like having that as their own history.
I mean, they accepted these things like everyone else accepted them, but they had their interpretation of such a story, especially in later years, was made very, it was made for their own purposes. So they adapted the story. So the adaptation is authentically Hebrew, but the origin of that whole the dragon slaying myth itself goes back way further, and that's the kind of stuff that they took from, and the language that is used here is their own iteration of it.
Mm-hmm. It's important to remember that the Jewish people were Canaanites, that it was a culture that emerged within that larger context. Yeah. So it's authentic, but also from somewhere.
It would be like asking, is the Aeneid authentically Latin? Like, yes, but it also took a whole bunch of stuff from Greek mythology. So, like, it's
but they've always
similar.
had lots of crossover and their neighbors, and they're very chitty chatty. So yeah.
They loved taking all that Greek stuff and saying, you know what, it's actually ours now.
I peed on it. It's mine.
Right. Yeah.
So Illyria the Free says Lilith liberated. The Pope is evil sounds like a great idea for a T-shirt.
Yeah, there are times when I would have worn that T-shirt every damn day, but the current Pope appears to be standing up against the fascist regime and the Yazis. So I'm gonna.
I think they weren't saying the Pope is evil. I think they were saying the Popo, as in the police.
Popo. Oh, that one. Yeah.
Did I misread that?
Fair.
You're right. It does say Popo.
So Popo is evil. Yeah. Well, especially for our American friends. I am so sorry.
Yeah. And then Illyria the Free says, I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but I might need some Lilith wisdom to decide how many memberships I'm doing today.
Yeah, and I told her I'll put Lilith on the spot because that's one of my favorite things.
Sophia. Oh, it is. It is. Hey, there's a reason I didn't take the name Sophia. How many people do we have watching today? Sorry, I had to restart my phone. So
At this
how many
moment,
people are watching?
I've
There's
got
55 people watching?
yeah, 55. This is what happens when we do weekdays. Yeah, we don't get near
Yeah,
as many
it's
people.
true. It's true. Well,
Okay,
thank
so
you
then
very much for your offer. I'm just going to go with the people watching, if that works.
oh, some of them already have, I think. So go half.
Good idea.
Yeah. So the spam goes here.
See, I don't know. I would say like as many as you can like reasonably afford. Like we probably don't want you to go broke for it. So
Yeah.
No, we
mean,
don't want you to go broke. It's
she
late-stage
donated-
capitalism. We're all trying to survive, but we do appreciate your support.
She donated 50 again yesterday, so I think she's already on 250
Oh, wow.
so far, maybe even
Wow.
more.
Oh, girl. Girl.
Yes, thank you. Thank
That's
you enormously.
an insane amount. I mean, I've never seen
That's
someone give so many memberships away on any channel so far.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. And judge by your own capacity, because hey, we're all trying to survive here, so we get it. And your generosity is wonderful. Thank you.
And she just donated 50 memberships. Thank you, Alira.
Oh, I should not have power over people's spending habits. I feel guilty now.
Okay, I started to read the name, but I haven't read the comment yet. So the spam goes here. Says, did a deep dive on medical stuff earlier. About 1,000 snake bites in Australia per year. 1 to 3 deaths. 0.1% death rate, despite 9/10 of the world's dangerous snakes here. That is kind of impressive, isn't it? How rarely
Shows you
people
what-
die from extremely deadly
Yeah.
snakes.
Yeah.
You do lose fingers and stuff, though.
Don't come to the
Yeah.
Netherlands
Thanks,
because
Ryan.
we don't have any antidotes, but you can have venomous snakes here. But if they bite you, you're on
That's
your own.
crazy.
Yeah.
See, I think Australia is just like, we know this is a problem. It's going to be a problem. Let's get ahead of it. And that's why, an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of cure.
When I was thinking about having venomous snakes, I wanted a couple of mildly venomous. There's the copperhead, lives here. It's indigenous. If I get the right species of it, there's a very pretty variant. I wanted to get this one. And if it bit me, I might lose a finger, but I'm not going to die. It's not that deadly. But there was one that I wanted that I thought would be cooler to have, and that was the British, the adder, the famous adder. So,
Because
but you
black
can't
adder.
have that. That's a protected species in England. If you have the British variant of it, it's a protected species. You cannot have them as a pet. So I cannot have Eerdmans.
Yeah. We don't have enough wildlife as it is.
Yeah, but I would have
We
named it Eerdmans.
Oh,
You could
we
go with the
recently
black
introduced
adder and
beavers
end
back
up with a
to them.
Mr. Bean.
Yeah, well, that's why I was going to name it Eerdmans. Yeah. Okay, so Danger Man 1973 offers $5. Thank you, and says, when I was at home, I saw my mom and my sis watching a TV show with the dialogue "Jesus rules." What's your opinion? What's my opinion on a show I've never heard of that somebody else watched?
Yeah, you could tell them Jesus
I
never
know.
ruled
I
anything.
don't know what show that is, but I do know that is the kind of dialogue that comes with the hell of Christian kids television, where you can't get a coffee without someone bitching about how the creamer doesn't honor the Lord, and everything has to be about Jesus. And this is the kind of nonsense that you're supposed to watch instead of real TV, because if we Jesus all over everything, it'll keep you from having sex when you're 16. And we all know how well that works. So yeah, it's going to be terrible. Whatever it is, I don't know, but I guarantee you this. If you watch it, you should watch it as one watches The Room or any other so bad it's good kind of material, like Bible Man or Salty the Singing Songbook.
My neighbors, my son was over there playing, and I come in to meet the people, his friends and everything, and then I see Bible Man is playing, and I watched a few minutes of that, and it was profoundly bad.
Oh, it is profoundly bad. I watch old Bible Reloaded episodes of Bible Man and Salty the Singing Songbook. Incidentally, I had Salty audio tapes as a kid. I never had the videotapes. And when I saw those episodes and saw what they were, I got down on my knees and thanked my parents for never having bought me that videotape, because that is nightmare fuel, and I don't want to see it.
I have seen the episode with Salty's dog, which was an adult man getting stroked by children everywhere. Not a good show.
And putting his back leg on a bunch of kids because he's...
yes.
God.
I was gonna say, like,
I need
if you want
alcohol.
if you want to watch a show that's bad, it's so bad it's good, you can watch like the 60s Batman Robin.
Yeah, it's that Bible Man
The
is like
60s
that level, but with
Batman
purple
and
styrofoam.
Robin from the 60s.
Well, that's because they medicated Batman so things wouldn't pop up in his costume.
And then they put him in with those Catwomen actresses. That makes things harder.
Yes, and if you want to know more, Google the guy who played Batman in that series and what he did, what he was famous for. Yeah.
This was
lots of angry husbands, let's say.
Adam West?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So back to the chat. So my unfinished sock says, "Don't go off schedule. Like and share the stream instead." And then Satan 616 offers 50 Romanian lei. I believe that's what that is. It offers that specifically for Aaron's hard work on the phylogeny videos. Thank you so much for that. I can't believe how long these things take. The phylogeny videos take so long. Just editing all the images and especially video and all of that. You wouldn't believe the amount of time that goes into putting those together. And I will have one out this afternoon.
I would believe it. But yeah, it's a lot. And I mean, they're wonderful, and dear God, we need to keep this information actually recorded somewhere, multiple somewheres, because of the war on education and information that appears to be going on, as well as everything else. I'll be right back.
Okay. My unfinished journey says, "Hail Aaron and panel, and hail claiming territory by urination." And then Terrence Clark offers $5 and says, "So glad to be caught up so I can watch these live. Now I just need to finish watching Atheist Sunday School, laughing out loud."
Yeah, have fun with that. It is it's a long series, but you know what? I think we get better as time goes on. Didn't start off so great, but then after, like, I think in like Psalms, we start getting really good.
And then that one episode I was on, that was awful.
You were on multiple episodes. But for one of them, you were fucking hammered.
You gave me a bottle of rum.
I did. Yeah, that is
before
true.
the show.
I was also, feeling it during that show, but I made it through.
Well, at least we had fun.
Yeah.
Tomer, you gonna quit holding us up?
I guess. Just a second.
I would actually recommend people, if they're interested in this chapter, read, like, they're gonna read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Check out the JPS version on Safari. I find it's quite nice. Like who can pry open the doors of his face?
Which the doors of his face, in another translation, they said that his mouth is like two great doors. And that's the first clue that we're talking about a crocodile.
Right.
Can I start?
Yes.
Would you please?
I wish. Okay. So we'll start at verse. So in the Masoretic text, so the Old Testament, in the Old Testament, Job 41 is basically from 40:25 forward. Did Peter say something?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, sorry.
Confused me.
My mic was still open.
Yes. Okay. So I'll start with verse 1, which is 40:25. Tie down its tongue with a rope. In Hebrew, it's bechevel tashkia leshono. The word tashkia is derived from the root shaka, to sink down. Thus, KJV reads, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down. JPS, press down with his tongue, etc. Several traditionals, like Nachmanides, Gersonides, and Kimchi, understood the phrase to mean, can you pull its tongue with a rope which you will sink down to the sea? Targum and Rashi took shaka to mean pull or tear out, i.e. to pull the Leviathan's tongue using a rope. Septuagint and Vulgate understood shaka as tying the tongue with a rope. Clines notes that the Michaelis recognized a different shaka, bind, which stands in the Samaritan text of Leviticus 8:13 for the Masoretic text chavash, bind. He notes that while ancient writers thought that the crocodile has no tongue, according to Herodotus, Aristotle, Plutarch, and Pliny, it does have an immobile tongue attached to the lower jaw. Davidson, Dom, and Piquet thought that the verse refers to a rope fastened around the tongue and lower jaw, which would then enable the captor to lead the beast around. Other suggestions include that the reference is to a method of carrying fish with a line through their jaws, or of keeping caught fish alive by passing a cord through their gears and returning them to water, according to Dahlman.
Okay, so they can't decide if it's a crocodile or a fish.
I mean,
most of the traditionals, I think it's a fish, but yeah.
It's
I don't know if it's like a
fish,
or if they're comparing, like God is saying, I am to the Leviathan as you are to, the salmon you hauled out.
Yeah, but I think because of the language, the traditional commentators thought of Leviathan as being a fish, which explains why. Which explains also why the imagery that Muslims use of the behemoth is normally just like a scaly fish, because they took it from the Jewish idea.
A whale with scales, that could have been the fish that swallowed Jonah.
Yeah.
Okay, on 3 and 4, which is 40, 27, and 28, Habel comments, quote, even if by some extraordinary feat Job did capture Leviathan and control him with a nose rope, he could never domesticate him to the point where he was a trusted servant. Yahweh has earlier challenged Job with a task of taming the wild ox and making him a faithful farm animal in 39, 9-12. Here, Yahweh increases the odds against Job succeeding. As a newly captured prisoner, Leviathan would be defiant and ferocious, not fawning and pleading for mercy. Nor would the sea monster enter into a lifelong agreement with Job as the master and Leviathan as the trusted slave in accordance with Israelite law. Exodus 21, 5 and 6 and Deuteronomy 15, 17. It is perhaps significant that in the Baal myth, El announces that Baal is to be Yam's slave forever, quote-unquote. After Yam is defeated, Astarte apparently pleads for his life, according to Pope.
Astarte.
What? Astarte.
Which god is that?
Goddess.
I mean that
it's
like commentary. She's like the Canaanite version of Ishtar.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but in his comment he uses his. I don't know why. Maybe it's a mistake. Yeah, according to Pope.
I think it's that she's pleading for Baal's life.
Yeah. His release, as in like.
Oh, for his life. Yeah.
Baal
apparently pleads for his life. Yeah.
He saves him. But the idea of the parent god, El, and then Baal, and then Yahweh taking over, having been the one that conquered the great beast and brought order to chaos, is definitely a theme. I think I have got to reread God and Anatomy, because she covered that in the way that the patriarchal development and which gods took over that role of having been the big, mighty hunter and all that jazz.
I'll just finish the comment. Job, like Leviathan, does not plead for mercy from El, but defies him and demands vindication. Okay, on 5, which is 4029, Clines writes that it is, quote, a nice touch to feminize the mighty Leviathan by imagining it as a plaything for little girls, so safe and tame as to belong to their world, end quote. He writes that the only being who could dare take Leviathan as a plaything is God himself. Psalms 104:26, in depicting the sea, speaks of Leviathan whom God made to play with, quote unquote. A rabbinic tradition in Talmud Avodah Zarah 3b has God playing with Leviathan every day from the 9th to the 12th hour.
The 9th to the 12th, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Has a busy schedule.
I mean, big animals. My uncle had a wolf dog. You really do need to give them a lot of exercise. Glad to hear God's a good pet owner, if nothing else.
I see. Okay, on 6, which is 4030, Clines comments, quote, if Leviathan is not to become a plaything, can it perhaps be a source of low-fat, low-calorie protein? Crocodile meat has half the fat of lean beef, the calories of chicken breast, and 31 grams of protein per 100 grams when roasted as a fillet. Yes? That is from his commentary, yes. This next absurd picture is, first, of the Guild of Fishers, not traders, as RSV, who have been out hunting for the larger-than-life Leviathan, who is at this moment at least not simply the down-to-earth crocodile. Now that they have caught it, they must agree on the price they will sell it for, and then they will have to cut up the carcass to parcel it out to retail traders. The second group are the traders who run market stalls. Leviathan will be too big to a purchase for any of them individually, and they will have to buy portions of it by weight.
That is an insane commentary. I feel like he just started learning how to cook, and he was like, well, this is a perfect place to include my commentary on cooking.
I mean, I think that's pretty based. I don't know about you.
Oh my fucking
god. Look, we've all seen a bit of Supernatural, but I really don't want to eat the Leviathan.
Yeah, but you get to.
Goody.
Or, yeah.
Why is God always putting things in people's mouths that they don't want?
I think there is a big tradition that the righteous will eat from Leviathan's meat or something like that, or they will settle in his sukkah,
both
inside his. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's one is the one that was killed at the beginning. It was pickled, and the meat is eaten. The righteous eat the meat. And the one that is killed freshly is the one that's used to build and make the walls of the hut. But I can't remember. Maybe it's the other way around.
That Left Behind would have been so much better if they had included the meal of pickled Leviathan meat from the dawning of the world.
Okay. I might be wrong about that. It might be that the pickled one is skin is used for the hut.
That sounds very much like when I had crocodile. They took me into Sydney Tower and fed me crocodile, and it was a crocodile sausage that was heavily seasoned and partially pickled and all of that.
I thought you were going to say that the Sydney Tower was made from crocodile skin. I was like, that's impressive.
That would be impressive. I mean, and to be fair, it's I have not had that particular experience, but what Isaac described with the leanness of crocodile and Tamara, I'm guessing it needs a little bit of a punch to be tasty.
I don't know why alligator is good. I like we sometimes we go to a Cajun restaurant, we have alligator frequently, and that's
Yeah, I don't think
Cajuns can cook.
I don't think the people who came up with this idea had discovered the concept of frying or deep
Well, surely
frying.
they had come up with frying. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
frying, but
throwing
maybe
things
not
in
deep
the tap.
frying. Sorry.
Okay.
See what you
And
let this show devolve into, Tomir?
Yeah, I know. It took me an hour to get here.
All right.
Okay. On 7 and 8, which is 40, 31, and 32, Habel comments, quote, "The challenge now returns to the theme of capturing Leviathan. Hunting Leviathan is no ordinary fishing trip. Job's arsenal does not contain sufficient harpoons and spears to subdue this monstrous creature. He is so ferocious that any hero daring enough to confront him will never return for a second onslaught, even if by some miracle he survives the first encounter. The theme of Leviathan's terrifying ferocity is developed further in the verses which follow. According to Kubina, the weapons mentioned here are those employed by Horus in his battle with Seth. In the relevant Egyptian myth, Horus slings his harpoon, quote-unquote, at Seth, who has assumed the form of a hippopotamus, in Anet 16. The impossibility of a mortal doing combat with Leviathan sets the stage for Yahweh's confrontation with this sea monster in the next unit.
do not fight a hippopotamus. You will die.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah, the
fighting.
Under no
description clearly,
circumstances.
the description that it alluded to that's upcoming, you'll see it clearly not talking about a hippo.
No, maybe, but still, the point stands.
I've never seen a hippo with scales.
We find stuff all the time. 9 and 10, which is 1 and 2. Habel takes these verses as Yahweh's challenge to Job about confronting Leviathan, and by extension God. The sight of Leviathan is so terrifying that it makes any opponent lose hope. The term appearance, mar'eh, was used earlier to designate the mysterious form that appeared to Eliphaz in 416. Rousing Leviathan brings ferocity. The verb for rouse, or, is used by Job in his opening curse in 3:8, where he summons those adept at rousing Leviathan to annihilate Job's origins. This makes Leviathan more than a crocodile, since it represents the chaos forces. Yahweh challenges Job's readiness to stir chaos in 3:8, who also accuses him of being cruel and ferocious, achzar, in 30:21. If Leviathan is terrifying, how can Job face Yahweh? Job wanted to make his case to Yahweh's face in 23:4, but at the same time is terrified of his face in 23:15, and wants God to withhold his overwhelming terror so that he could withstand his face in 13:2. The idiom "take a stand before" Yetzav Hitpa'el of Yetzav was used earlier in the forensic context of Job taking a stand to present his case before Elihu as arbiter in 33:5. Thus, Yahweh seems to be referring back to Job's demand to confront God face to face and present his case before him in court.
Doesn't this just sound like you can't question me because I'm bigger and stronger? And what are you trying to do? Unlock, like just break apart the entire system? Everything will collapse. Shut up.
See that crocodile over there? I made that. What did you make? That's what this is.
That too.
Okay, on 11 and 12, which is 3 and 4, Habel takes these verses as Yahweh's response to Job's legal challenge, using Leviathan as a parallel. Earlier, Job claimed that his salvation lay in the fact that no godless person could come before God's face and survive. Yahweh states that those who confront God are requited, shalem, for their actions, since Yahweh is the Lord of the universe, and hence responsible for justice. The verb for confronting, hefe'il of kadam, recalls Job's boasting that he would approach, karav, his adversary at law, as a prince crowned with the charges of his opponent, in 31:37. Leviathan had its boastings, badim, duly silenced, charash. Zophar warned that Job's boasting might silence humans, but would be quashed if God himself spoke, in 11:3 and 5. Yahweh's claim to have silenced the boasting of Leviathan, therefore, implies an ironic allusion to Job's own boastings and their inevitable collapse. Thus, verse 12 echoes the veiled allusion to subduing Job's mouth, quote-unquote, in the control of Behemoth's mouth, in 40:24. Leviathan's boasting is defined as mighty words and persuasive case. In both Elihu's speech and elsewhere in Job, the verb arach means prepare or present a case. The association of this root with the idiom take a stand before in this speech, in 10 in the Old Testament, implies juridical connotations. Finally, the mythological roots of Leviathan's claim or case may be reflected in the persuasive demand of Yam for kingship of earth, to which El accedes when he orders Baal to be surrendered to Yam as his servant. Habel, however, writes that the force of the text here is not on the mythic event as such, but on the implied comparison of Job with this chaos monster who once challenged Yahweh and was put in his place. On 13 through 17, which is 5 through 9, Habel writes that Yahweh, quote, revels in flamboyant description of the chaos monster he once silenced, end quote. The monster's body is impenetrable, protected like a mighty warrior with a double coat of mail, and with row upon row of war shields along his back, which are interlocking and tightly sealed. Attempts to capture large beasts like the hippo or crocodile involved penetrating their jaws with hooks and binding their mouths with ropes. But the doors of Leviathan's face, i.e., his jaws, are shut tight and cannot be pried open. Around his teeth, terror hovers ominously, with terror elsewhere referring to the terrifying forces which emanates from God's presence and petrifies his opponents. Job was also afraid that he would be overwhelmed by El's terror should he actually show his face in 934 and 1321. If Job cannot face the terror of Leviathan, how can he face Yahweh? On 18, which is 10, its snorting throws out flashes of light. The Masoretic text reads, Atishotav tahel or. Most other translations and traditionals understood the text plainly, that when Leviathan sneezes, light flashes forth and shines. Clines notes that Rowley thought that the vapor or spray that issued from the nostrils of the crocodile flashed in the sunlight. Also Piquet, Dorm, Gordis, and Hakham. And Moffat translates, the light plays on his snorting snout. Others, like Pope and Habel, who take Leviathan to be more mythological, see here a dragon breathing out flames of fire. Clines writes that there doesn't seem to be any zoological evidence that crocodiles sneeze, but it does seem that they snort, and when they vomit, as part of their normal digestive process, they seem to sneeze, snap their jaws together, and then shake their heads from side to side. Although there are passages from Strabo, 1739, and others which claim that the crocodile sneezes, Clines notes that it refers to the crocodile yawning or gaping in the sun.
And the reference to all the little shields on its back, so close together that they're joined together and cannot be separated, that's, of course, the osteodermal armor that crocodiles have.
That's kind of how scales work.
Well, these aren't
if I'm not
scales.
mistaken.
These
No.
aren't scales. These are osteoderms.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, on that same verse, its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Rowley and Gordis thought that the reference is to the reddish eyes of the crocodile, while Hartley thought that, quote, the reflection of the light in its reddish eyes make them appear like the rays of dawn, end quote. Also Rashi, Rashbam, and Kara. Clines notes that Achilles Tatius, in the 2nd century AD, reported of the hippo as, quote, opening its nostrils wide and snorting out a reddish smoke as if from a fire, end quote. And Bocart spoke of its vomiting, quote-unquote, flames from its mouth and nostrils. Clines writes, however, that these are fanciful depictions, quote-unquote. He also writes that while the eye of the crocodile is the sign of the dawn in Egyptian hieroglyphic, it is doubtful if this has any significance here. He notes that according to Hieroglyphica, a text attributed to Horapollo from the 4th or 5th centuries AD, quote, the Egyptians used the crocodile's eyes as the symbol of dawn because the crocodile swims with his whole body submerged except for the eyes which appear above the surface. The reddish eyes or eyelids of the crocodile are said to glow through the water, end quote. He notes that Pope compared the account of the messengers of Yam, who intimidate the gods with their fiery appearance. Quote, fire, burning fire, doth flash, a whetted sword are their eyes, end quote, in Aenet 130. Regarding the crocodile's eyes, he writes, quote, while they are exceptionally interesting from a biological point of view, the opening of the crocodile's eye with its nictitating membrane I hope I said it right, nictitating membrane that sweeps across the eye as it opens, just conceivably being likened to the coming of dawn. A reasonable view is that what we have here is an embroidering of the picture of the real crocodile with fanciful or mythological material about a dragon. From the eyelids of the dawn come rays of light. As in 3.9, the eyelids of the dawn are the first light in the east that heralds dawn. The eyelids of the crocodile, on the other hand, emit nothing. Habel, regarding the creature as a mythological dragon, explains its red eyes as an expression of the intense heat within its body. Yeah, you're done.
Aww.
Yeah, Lilith
Which one is
missed
that?
that.
That is one of my 4 reticulated pythons. This is a tiny little baby. This is a golden child morph. Yeah. My wife got me it's a female, but it is also super dwarf or half super dwarf, which means it's probably not going to get any bigger than my Jormungandr, which is 11 feet.
11 feet is the super dwarf, teeny tiny version. Love it.
Yes.
Who's a good little baby?
Because this species, the females can be twice that big. As in,
Yeah, I believe you.
we've had them 22 feet before. Anyway.
Yes, on 19, which is 11.
And by the way, Tomer, I like the commentary here. It's like a poetic view on the flame and all of that, because I just thought people just embellished over time and just made shit up. But that's a nice way to describe how you could actually look at the thing and come up with this depiction of it.
As if people back in the day did poetry.
Yeah, that's totally not part of all of human existence as long as we've had language. No, but seriously, yeah, the red eyes reflecting the light of dawn as that being the only thing that tells you whether or not you're going to get eaten when you go for water in the morning. Like that I can entirely see freaking you out. And it's a slight exaggeration.
When we get to the weapons against this thing, try to remember that we are not talking about like movie warriors in armor. Right, we're talking about somebody that's like maybe a foot shorter than me, and has virtually no real armor to speak of, and the darts and swords and spears or arrows that they have are all insignificant. They're not. They're basically what children would play with. I mean, they're not terribly significant things. So a small person with weak arrows and basically a pointed stick going up against a Nile crocodile.
Yeah, I can see why. And honestly, I watched the Black Stallion the movie when I was a kid. And the dad is trying to, in the very beginning, they're on a ship and the dad's trying to give his kids some of his poker winnings, but not anything actually valuable. So he gives him a knife, which is very useful to him later on. And then this little stallion, and tells him this story of, this horse with fire in his eyes and smoke coming out of his nose. And, and like that. But that's the type of story we've always told kids. It's exaggerated. Yeah. But like I've breathed out on a cold morning and seen my breath too. So, it's the light exaggerations that are natural to storytelling and fun and myth, especially when you're trying to, keep an idea fresh in the mind, particularly if you want to warn your kids about what to look out for so they don't get eaten by crocodiles when they go to get the water in the morning. Because that's just not what you want as a parent, usually.
How many kids do we still have living today, Ma?
Okay, on 19, which is 11, Clines notes that Rowley explains, quote, when the crocodile issues from the water, it expels its pent-up breath together with water in a hot stream from its mouth, and this looks like a stream of fire in the sunshine, end quote. He writes, however, that this depiction of flaming torches and sparks of fire emanating from the mouth of the crocodile is no more than an elaboration of the image of the fire-breathing dragon. Habel writes that the fire emanating from Leviathan marks his character as a mythic or divine being, and not an ordinary crocodile. He notes that the emphasis on the mouth and nostril of the monster recalls again the mouth and nose of Behemoth in 4024, as well as the earlier allusion to the nose, tongue, and jaw of Leviathan in 41:1 and 2, which is 25 and 26 in the Masoretic text. Chapter 40. On 20, which is 12, smoke pours from its nostrils. Hebrew for smoke is ashan. While this is the general understanding of the word, traditionals understood ashan as referring to steam, as if coming from a boiling pot. This reading is favored by Moffat, Dorm, Driver Gray, REB, and NAB. Clines writes that while it is still not literally true, it can be an acceptable metaphor for the jet of water from the crocodile's nose. On 21, which is 13, Clines comments, quote, "The language of the crocodile's breath setting coals on fire is certainly hyperbolical, even mythological. That is, the language is mythological, but that does not settle the question whether the creature described is or is not a mythological creature. Everyone knows, of course, that dragons have fiery breath, and supporters of the mythological interpretation of Leviathan are much affirmed by this description. Habel notes how fire blazes from the mouth of Marduk when he manifests his glory in Einat 62, and how the messengers of the sea god Yam flash fire when they arrive. And we could compare the bulls in Virgil's Georgics that, quote, breathe fire from their nostrils, end quote, with which Jason yoked together at Colchis in order to sow the teeth of the dragon in 2:140. We do not need to go outside the Hebrew Bible, however, for a picture of the deity with smoke from the nostrils, fire from the mouth, and glowing coals flaming forth, as we see in 2 Samuel 22:9, aka Psalms 18:8, which is 9. Mineral coal is not known in Palestine, and the reference is to wood coal, i.e. charcoal, gachelet, used for heating in Isaiah 47:14 and John 18:18, for cooking in Isaiah 44:19 and John 21:9, and for forging in Isaiah 44:12. Specifically, charcoal of broom is mentioned at Psalms 1204.
I mean, I feel like there is obviously a lot of mythological origins, and the name Leviathan even being part of some of the surrounding mythological tales, but often myths are based on tales of creatures like the monitor lizard that turned into a mighty fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah. From a
okay,
lizard, from a tiny little lizard to King Ghidorah.
On 22, which is 14, Hartley writes that Leviathan's strongness is expressed by a common idiom for referring to the center of an animal's strength, even though this would not be literally true if this creature is a crocodile. He writes that as this creature crawls along, vigor leaps before it, i.e., its very movement communicates its strength to onlookers, making them flee for cover. Clines notes that Dorm is reminded of David dancing and leaping before the ark in 2 Samuel 6:14-16, but writes that it is perhaps more relevant to think of righteousness going before Yahweh as a herald in Psalms 85:13, which is 14, or of fire going before him in Psalms 97:3. Or of pestilence going before him at his theophany and plague following close after in Habakkuk 3:5. He writes that the idiom stresses the beauty or at least the fascination of the crocodile and its effect on its watchers.
I mean, those things move fast. I don't want to be getting my morning water from a crocodile-infested lake. Like, I'm sorry, a river. I'm sorry. Those things are scary.
When you watch one lift a wildebeest out of the water.
Yeah. I don't care how many Floridians insist that they are swamp puppies. No, they are not. They will eat you.
On 24, which is 16, Clines comments, quote, "In comparing the chest or body of the crocodile to the nether millstone, the poet does not have in mind the commercial kind of millstone that has a rotating stone, as probably at Matthew 24:41, but the domestic mill or saddle quern used for the daily preparation of grain, as at Exodus 11:5. It consists of a lower stone, slightly concave, perhaps 30 inches in length, and a lighter stone held in the hand. The person milling, usually a woman, would kneel in front of the lower stone. The term shechev, literally the liar, is attested in Mishnaic Hebrew. And move the upper stone, the rider, rechev, as in Deuteronomy 24:6, Judges 9:53, and 2 Samuel 11:21, back and forth across the lower, thus grinding the grain. The nether millstone, which received the harder wear, would commonly be basalt or sometimes limestone. On 26 through 29, which is 18 through 21, Habel comments, quote, ordinary weapons of warfare are useless against Leviathan. Potential dragon slayers may as well tickle him with a straw as fling spears at him. He is impervious to the traditional weapons of gods or mortals. The audience will remember, however, that the maker of Behemoth drew a sword to keep him in check in 40:19, and once crushed the many heads of Leviathan in Psalm 74:14. Yahweh can silence him even if others cannot. The laugh, tzachak, motif in Yahweh's speeches reaches its culmination point in this passage. In the preceding sequence of defined creatures, the wild ass laughs at the Führer of the city in 39:7. The ostrich laughs at the horse and its rider in 39:18. The horse in turn laughs at fear, quote unquote, in 39:22. And Leviathan laughs at the shakings of javelins. Yet Leviathan is precisely the creature God formed to laugh or play with in the deep, in Psalms 104:26. The playful irony of the poet is reflected in his picture of wild animals playing or laughing with Behemoth in 40:20, and his absurd scene where children play or laugh with Leviathan as if he were a harmless pet bird in 41:5 in the Old Testament. In the hands of Yahweh, it seems, the defiant laugh of this sea monster can be transformed into a giggle or a game, as in Psalms 104:26.
Yeah, I like the way crocodiles giggle.
They're so girly. Yeah, they just want a Hello Kitty hair clip, but they have no hair to put it in. Also, what's with the many heads? I forgot. When was Leviathan a Hydra?
Many heads?
Oh, yeah.
The many heads of Leviathan.
Yeah, that stems from way earlier. It was in the thing I quoted from the Ugaritic text.
Does the Bible say it has many heads, or is that only like?
Well, I know Revelation eventually goes there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but that's not the Bible.
Bible.
Oh, Tomer, we are so looking forward to getting into the New Testament with you.
Yeah, really curious to see how Tomer does with the New Testament.
Probably the usual way, without Jewish commentators. Okay, on 30, which is 22, Clines writes that by imagining the Leviathan's nether parts as a threshing sledge fitted with sharp potsherd, the poet envisages how it will leave a deep imprint as it walks away from lying in a comfortable spot in the mud. He writes, however, that while the depiction is poetic, there is nothing mythological about the creature here. He notes that PK offered an instructive and amusing piece of meta-commentary on the issue. Quote, Dumb objects to this, that the scales on the underpart are smooth. Eerdmans says that they are smaller than those on the back, but equally sharp. Davidson says that though smoother than those on the back, they are still sharp. If modern commentators can differ like this on a plain matter of fact, one cannot expect too great precision in the poet, who may have known the crocodile only from reports or reading. End quote. Clines further writes that a threshing sledge was a flat, heavy wooden board, bent upward at the front with projecting stones or pieces of iron fixed into its underside. As it was dragged over the threshing floor, weighted down with stones or workers, it tore the husks from off the grain and cut the straw into chaff.
And I viewed the potsherds as being like the projections along the edges of the crocodile's back, and of course where they merge down its tail.
This image also suggests teeth or even claws as it's climbing over things. Or, well, I don't know. What's the belly of a dragon supposed to be? It's supposed to be its vulnerable place, but that doesn't mean it's smooth.
On 31, 31 and 32, which is 23 and 24, Habel comments, quote, "The language describing Leviathan's abode points to the primordial abyss and the subterranean deep, not to the Nile. Leviathan is the great primordial sea monster portrayed by the poet's artistry as if he could be observed today. He churns up the ocean's deeps and makes them seethe in turmoil. He thereby reveals his character as a symbol of chaos and subterranean fury. The surface of the watery deep is so tumultuous in his wake that it appears to have a head of white hair. Chaos is stirred when he is roused. Job sought chaos when he solicited powers adept at rousing Leviathan in 3:8. Here, too, there is a comic aspect to the imagery employed by the poet, that the vast ocean deeps should be compared to a bubbling apothecary's pot is delightfully bizarre. Apothecary's pot is delightfully bizarre. That the raging surface of the abyss should be compared to the white hair of an old man is appealingly incongruous. The sea is characterized as in turmoil, while white hair bespeaks serenity."
Yeah.
Bespeaks.
I also only recently looked up the word hoary, which just means like white haired.
Yeah.
But it
one
sounds
thing
so
about-
dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen old men with white hair coming out of their ears, some of them are indeed very dirty.
I mean, I think it's supposed to be like, like a wise old man sort of imagery, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Rise before the hoary head, because we are going to pretend that even fools don't get old. So
Yeah, verse 22, Rashi has an interesting interpretation of the jagged shards or stones or whatever you translated it. I don't know where the translation comes from, but he says that under him are rays of light, rays of the sun. That the scales on the bottom of the fish are illuminate and shine out like the sun in the sea. It's a bit weird, but
Maybe because it's cheresh. If I remember correctly, cheresh, or cheres specifically, can refer to the sun.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and chadu, they can be like sharp swords or
Yeah.
all right, so we have to finish this book.
I have one verse though, 34, which is 26. Habel writes that the lofty gavoa are reminiscent of the proud ge'eh, whom Job is challenged to look on, re'i, and abase in his potential role as Lord of Justice on earth, in 40, 11, and 12. Clines writes that the lofty over which Leviathan is king must be other beasts, since it is self-evidently untrue that it rules over humans. He writes that the allusion to 40, 11, and 12 is problematic, since those verses are not exactly at the beginning of the poem, and they are found in the address to Job, not in the accounts of the two beasts. The problem would be to see what the significance of the allusion would be. Quote, "Job is incapable of treating down the wicked," in 40:12c, i.e. managing the moral universe, but that seems little related to Leviathan's kingship, which is only one of status, not of function, and which subsists in fear, not in judgment. The language is the same, but the spheres in which the two passages live are totally different." End quote. Clines notes that in Egypt, the crocodile was frequently used as a metaphor for the king. For example, the victory hymn of Thutmose III has the god Amun-Re saying to the pharaoh, quote, "I caused them," i.e. the king's enemies, "to see thy majesty as a crocodile, the lord of fear in the water, which cannot be approached," end quote, in Anet 374b. Pope writes that the Leviathan's kingship over all the sons of pride would suggest that it belongs to the world of real-life animals. But Clines writes that he can counter this natural implication only by pointing again to the many mythological features he has already noted in the depiction.
Which aren't really that mythological in this chapter. It's not, many-headed and all that.
They do breathe fire, though. Sorry, they do
Yeah, there's a bit
Did it
about
say
that.
I don't know. I'm tired. I'm fucking tired.
Yeah, it says fire
Breathe
comes out
out
of its
fire.
mouth, coal and steam comes out of its nose, and
Steam, I could see at least the,
God.
smoke.
watery spouting. Anyway, who is going to read the last chapter of Job?
Before we do that,
Ooh.
Oh, right, of course.
guess
Oh,
who's
no.
talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Guess who's talking about Jesus? HCH Christians again. Now,
Is it the country version? What was that?
I don't know. It's my tired version.
Fair.
So, but oh my god, they talk a whole lot about Leviathan. Jesus fuck. So all the fathers agree in seeing in this monstrous animal a symbolic representation of the devil. They analyzed. Well, they analyze this depiction along three main lines of interpretation. In the first place, the Leviathan reveals in its physical features all the spiritual characters of malice and evilness of the devil, according to Gregory, Origen, and Olympiodorus. In the second, the Leviathan appears to represent evilness in its different manifestations among humankind, according to Gregory, Origen, Olympiodorus, and Julian of Eclanum. In the third, the Leviathan, which is subject to the power of God and destined to be defeated by Christ, symbolizes victory over evil through the grace of Christ, according to Gregory, Olympiodorus, Origen, Julian the Arian, Ephraim, and Philip.
Just because you can draw an analogy of something does not mean that that's what it originally meant.
Ow! You bit me.
Oh, Satan.
Yep. She bit me.
Ow.
Aww.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're
those-
bitey when they're babies, but you have to hold them a lot so that they get over that, because you don't want something like this to get bitey when they're big.
Yeah, I'm done here.
I don't know. From an outside perspective, Christians seem to be, what's the word? They seem to have more than one God in multiple ways.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they definitely do. They're also binary. If it's good, it portends Jesus or whatever, and if it's in any way bad, well, then it's Satan. And everything
like
has to be viewed that way.
But you bring up an interesting point, Isaac, because the truth of the matter is that Christianity has never had one God, even if there's only one Christian. If you look into the heart of every Christian believer, you will find two gods. The God they are defending emotionally is the God that is born out of their own ideas and drives and desires and preferences. They say God is good, so they attribute all the aspects of goodness as they understand it to God, and they defend that as if they are defending good itself. The other God is the God of the doctrines, which they think is the same thing and is in no way the same thing. And that's the God that we're all talking about, because it's the one that we have texts for and actual verifiable attributes we can discuss as being attributed to it. But emotionally, they're just going on their own defense of what they feel is good.
Interesting. Because like they'll say like all the bad things come from Satan, and Satan wants you to worship yourself. And actually, when they worship themselves, that's the good God, not Satan.
So, from the Jewish perspective,
Mm.
I mean, you guys, I don't ever hear the Jewish commentators ever mention the devil. I mean, you have one, right? I mean,
There's no devil.
Satan it's just Satan. It's never
Satan is
devil.
an angel, so he's not considered a demon or an evil entity.
Does Jewish theology ever refer to this character the way Christians constantly do?
Maybe.
I mean,
later.
the idea of like he's on the land and like he influences people to do, like entice people to do the wrong thing. Like he's almost kind of it's almost like he's the same character as what's known as the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination.
I think
It's almost like the Satan and the evil inclination is the same guy, but at the same time they're not. One is within you, and one is an angel whose job it is to what's the word, persecute you. So maybe like the evil inclination is like a servant of him. It's a bit confusing in that sense, but
isn't it sort of like God's Yetzer Hara?
Maybe
If he has that component.
Yeah, but he's supposed to be like actually like influence, like, you know, influencing you in a sense, like, you know, just like he can go and influence Job in this story, he can you know, he's knows what we're doing and is, you know, testing us in all the ways that we can be tested, I guess. But it's all in God's you know, plan, if that makes sense. He's not doing it because he wants you to fail. He's testing you so that you're so that you actually live up to you know, what
the
God
idea
wants
is
you
to instigate so that you'll be forced to choose and then ideally choose right.
Get. Yeah, it's like it's like, you know, if you just live your life and go to when you go to heaven, you're going to go to like this level. But if Satan comes to you with all of these problems in your life and you fulfill them and whatever, then you'll go higher up in that sense. You deserve more because you were able to withstand.
If you put up with a lot of crap and didn't become a horrible human being.
Yeah, which is probably was an idea that was, you know, why do bad things happen to us? Oh, because God's testing us. You know, rather than the Christian version where it's like, no, God somehow lost control over his heavenly court, and the bad guy is trying to get you to fight on his side, and God can't stop him. It's very confusing, but like it probably comes from the same place.
He can and can't. It's very contradictory. It's kind of he builds himself into a corner with his own mythology and prophecy kind of a thing. But it's really just excuses for why he's still good, and it's not his fault that anything bad ever happens, despite him having all power, because fuck logic.
I'm done.
All right. So, Lilith, are you reading the next one?
Hell yeah.
Have fun with it.
Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do all things. No plan of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this that obscures my counsel without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. You said, listen now, and I will speak. I will question you, and you will answer me. My ears have heard you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. Please don't kill me.
Yes, I spoke against Trump, but now I'm going to be one of his sycophants.
Yeah. Fuck Donald Trump. Now, after the Lord had said these things to Job, without answering any of his questions and just scaring him into compliance, of course. After the Lord had said these things to Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I am angry with you and your two friends because they have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. So now take 7 bulls and 7 rams and go to my servant Job and sacrifice a burnt offering for yourselves, and my servant Job will pray for you. And I will accept his prayer and not deal with you according to your folly. You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. So Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Nemathite did what the Lord told them, and the Lord accepted Job's prayer. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord made him prosperous again and gave him twice as much as before. All his brothers and sisters and everyone who had known him before came and ate with him in his house. They comforted and consoled him over all the trouble the Lord had brought upon him, and each one gave him a piece of silver and a gold ring. And the Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the first. He had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. The first daughter he named Jemimiah, the second Keziah, and the third Keren Hapuch. Nowhere in all the land were there found women as beautiful as Job's daughters, and their father granted them an inheritance along with their brothers. After this, Job lived 140 years. He saw his children and their children to the 4th generation, and so he died old and full of years. Because remember, if God kills your kid, he can always give you a prettier one. That makes it all better, right?
Yes. Yes, it does. Hey, you have better kids. Cool.
No, not better. Prettier.
Job is an elf, confirmed in this chapter. He lives super long. He also there's three rings, and the elf's got 3 rings.
Yes.
And now
Pretty
Infidel 3476 offers $49.99. Thank you very much.
Damn.
It says, slip this into Aaron's garter. That dance.
You know, I mean, nobody really
think
looks
he
at us
might-
from the waist down. You could be wearing a garter. What do I know?
I think
Yeah,
he
don't
might be
feed your goddess
referring
snake
to
coins.
this.
Oh.
Oh. Oh,
In which case, Arden, do I get a F?
good.
No, never mind.
Let's see. Lawrence is not here, so I don't know what.
Where did Lawrence go? Lawrence, get your ass over here. Maybe he's getting his cat out of the roof again.
It's going to behold something.
Behold.
I've got to handle this thing more. She struck at me like 4 or 5 times while sitting here, and of course, actually bit me once, and keeps getting reactive. I got to get her used to being petted and all that.
I mean, it could be worse, Arden. I
Jormungandr
do recall you getting strangled on air and turned red.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun.
I think we all started yelling pineapple at you.
I wonder if so the end of this bit, it says that Job lived an extra 140 years, which is I mean, there
the
are
Bible say
commentators.
120.
Is the max prior to the
No, the
knockdown
max
to
is
310?
the max is 140 according to Psalms. I mean, the normal lifespan is in 70 years according to Psalms 90:10. So
Normative,
like you
yeah.
have double the number, which indicates
Double
this.
70, yeah. But 120
have-
is the traditional Jewish like maximum lifespan, which is also, I think, Moses lived 120 years.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
his life is divided into 3 40-year stints. So
Yeah,
hypothetically, yeah, sure, 120, why not?
yeah.
But at the same time, you mentioned the question of whether or not these were Job's original children brought back to life, or if they were new children. Now, I would argue that the mention that his daughters were really, really hot now would indicate that these are new kids.
He also named them.
He also named them, exactly, which presumably the only reason you would give a new name is if it's new kids. I mean, as much as I love Good Omens and the Crowley fake out with the lizards and the bones and all that, I don't think it has much viability.
Well, if you already
this
had
story.
a kid named Seitel, wouldn't you just, if you have a new one, wouldn't you just name it Seitel too? It's a replacement. Or just name them all sequel.
Well, you can get to
Return of
number
the
9,
Clones.
number 9, number 9, number 9.
Susan too.
Give me a
number
break.
2.
There's
Yeah,
Lord.
apparently all of these names of the daughters are like, to do with beauty, related to the day, bright as the day, name of a perfume, the cosmetic
Yeah.
supplement, apparently is what Karen Hapuch means. Which how would you
Cassia,
translate literally? A horn of the
a horn
of like myrrh? No,
balm
what's
or perfume or whatever.
something like that. And it's
Uh,
like, okay, so he named them when they were born based on their beauty.
I don't
Or
know.
aesthetic
Well, I
names,
mean, naming a daughter something beautiful is not unusual.
Right.
Linda is Spanish for pretty, Bella, Italian.
Yeah, but I'm saying
You've
it's like
got-
it
yeah,
means like a
Cassia,
storytelling.
the way it's spelled in other translations, not the one I read, the second name is actually a form of cinnamon. The name of a
Cassia?
form of cinnamon, but I think it's a sweet smelling savor thing. Yeah. So
yeah. Rashi translates it as Cassia.
yeah, that I've seen that translation and thought it was funny because cinnamon. I like cinnamon, but not gonna kill my kids for it.
Interesting. Yeah, but I was saying it could just be like a storytelling device, right? They were so beautiful, and he named them these beautiful names or whatever.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, this is obviously a story written.
This is my daughter Griselda, but I call her Greasy for short.
Ah.
There's this. I'm trying to remember that one. I remember there's the boy's name. This is my son Matt, short for mattress.
What? Named after the location of their conception?
No, there's a girl's name version, but I can't remember it. It's not like Allie, short for alligator. It's like
Don't give your kids weird names, okay? No, they're not just kids. They're gonna grow up and be adults, and they don't need to deal with freaking weird ass. What is the unique?
Yeah, there's a whole Reddit subreddit r/tragedy. And
tragedy. That was the
and it's spelled TRADIGIGH or something like that.
I'll wager we have both watched a couple episodes of The Click, reading some posts off of that because oh my god, don't do that to a child. Don't do that. They have a funny nickname, but don't.
It's a very white Christian thing to do for some reason.
Well, you see, we have no culture, and particularly the evangelical Protestant Puritan drive is always to try and rip away any culture you build up over time by returning to the authentic Christianity and rejecting the worldly whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter if it's dancing or cards or the I don't know, doing anything with food other than boiling it in a tasteless pot. Puritans.
I wonder if I wondered if it was something to do with like not being able to express your own individuality, and so you like project it onto your own child. And
sometimes I think it's people who don't have enough problems, so they end up creating them just to have something to do.
Never understood people like that.
Well, because you've had real problems in your life, like a person.
Yeah, but I also appreciate the fuck out of everything. I generally tend to be more positive, and I know people who can't ever. I know I'm very closely related to some people who cannot ever say something nice or just say that they appreciate. They can't say what a beautiful day. Can't do it. The most I get was like they'll say like, well, it'd be okay if.
Well, yeah, days suck.
But it's like that with everything. They never find a positive aspect to anything, no matter how beautiful.
I mean, there's a Jewish joke. Two Gentile businessmen bump into each other in the street, and one asks the other, "So how's business? How's it going?" And the other one says, "Yeah, it's all right. It's good. It's going well."
Oh, good. Well, in fairness, I think anxiety may run in the Jewish community because those that didn't have obscene degrees of anxiety didn't make it.
I mean, it's something to do with the sense of humor,
Pros
sense of
and cons.
irony.
Pros and
It's like,
cons. Yeah. Oh God. I know, but it's so funny. I get that, but at the same time, like, I think Agent Smith had a point when he said that he thought human beings define themselves through their suffering. And I don't mean that we're all insane pessimists who can never enjoy anything. I mean that the kid who never gets told no, who has nothing to push against, who has no struggles to overcome, becomes an adult with no sense of self. Also a raging asshole, because fuck's sake, please tell your children no, they need to hear it. But also you bump up against things and you're like, oh, that's something that's there. And I mean, physically, but also mentally and emotionally. We do, to some degree, define ourselves by what we struggle with and overcome it. It doesn't have to be all struggles to be valid and useful and important for learning. But, if we don't at least have something that we have to come to terms with, I think we kind of turn into assholes.
Right.
Well, another difference between my perspective and the people that have always been around me is where other people will be envious that somebody else has something better than them. And so they're constantly complaining that what they've got isn't good enough. They need to have this other better thing. And I've always looked at the vast number of people in close proximity to me who have shit so much worse than I do. Worse than I could even manage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always count myself lucky.
Yeah.
Even though I'm poor, I'm living well, for the most part, and healthy and all that, and just happy to be that way.
Yeah. And I mean, that speaks to character too. Are you always envious of people who have things you don't? And like, that's the thing about envy, is it's so pointless, because half the time it's shit you don't even like. Like people who buy egregious, oh God. Okay. Side note, YouTube, just for fun, Refashioned Hippie on TikTok and YouTube. She does these videos about ridiculous rich people shit us poors haven't heard of. Like a stylized Eerdmans Band-Aid for a couple $1,000 or something. It's ridiculous. But like, why are you going to get something just because you want to show off? Like, don't you actually enjoy anything for its own sake? Do you not enjoy the food? Do you eat food for prestige, or do you eat it because it fucking tastes good? Because one of those is a way I do not want to live, because that sounds exhausting and expensive and fucking miserable.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to be envious of people who have things that you don't have, but on the other hand, some people just have too much stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not envious of it, but if I feel like if I had that stuff, I'd be able to use it for something a lot better, like
it sounded like you were going to
high-speed rail or
have their stuff taken away.
Yeah.
That
Get
would
rid of
look better in my garage.
prescriptions.
Yeah. And I don't even necessarily mind expensive things, like Keanu Reeves bought all his stunt doubles, I think in The Matrix probably, or one of the other ones. Yeah, bought them all these motorcycles, really nice motorcycles, because he could afford it and he loves motorcycles. And he got them all something really nice, which is lovely. It's lovely. He's allowed to be rich because he's not a dick. But like, if that's your thing, that's your thing. But just endlessly buying stuff you don't give a fuck about because you want to impress someone who doesn't really like you at all, and you don't like it all either. I don't understand this.
Yeah, that's the other thing about fashion. People will tell you what's in fashion. Why would I care what other people like? The only
fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable.
Yeah.
We must alter it every 6 months.
Anyway, Tomer,
Yes.
you stop slowing
Okay.
us down here?
Sorry. Though. Okay.
I can
So on
slow
verse
Tomer
2.
down a little. Alira just sent another 50 on-raw memberships.
Elira, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. I don't even know what to say to that.
Okay. So on verse 2, Habel writes that Job's response echoes his earlier acknowledgement that God has the wisdom and power to create or destroy, though his destructive tendencies seem to dominate in 12:13 forward. Job knows that God has the capacity to execute any plan he chooses in the design of the cosmos. The noun mezima, purpose, in NIV, is frequently used to imply evil and devious scheming, as we see in 21:27, Jeremiah 11:15, and Proverbs 12:2. According to Jeremiah, Yahweh's schemes are expressions of his anger which mortals may consider evil, but which are revealed in the course of time to be otherwise. Habel adds that the author may have employed this expression to remind the audience of the original scheme devised by Yahweh and the Satan to test Job's integrity, and that Job is in fact suspicious of some such plan. Clines notes that Strachan thought that, quote, this is no longer a recognition of God's arbitrary omnipotence. It does not mean thou canst do as thou wilt and never give an account of thy doings, but rather thou canst make the innocent suffer, yet thou art just and good. Forel observes that the term know, yada, signifies an experience that embraces the whole of existence, a knowledge that liberates and supports. But Clines writes that commentators do not explain how Yahweh's speeches can have led Job to this conclusion. It has also been argued by Good that the sentence is almost infinitely ambiguous. It could be straightforwardly submissive, or indignant, or sarcastic, or obsequious, or even falsely submissive. While the tone is very difficult to determine, the matter here must be settled by the meaning of the context, and especially the context of the immediate sequel to the divine speeches.
At least God defends Job to his friends. I guess you could say that much for him.
On verse 3, Habel comments, quote, the first line of verse 3 and the second line of verse 4 are quotations from Yahweh's whirlwind speech, to which Job is responding. The first is a challenge to Job to identify himself as the human adversary, obfuscating Yahweh's primordial design, etzah, through ignorance in 38:2, and demonstrate discernment equal to Yahweh's in 38:4. The second quotation recalls the challenge formula addressed by Yahweh to Job prior to both his speeches from the whirlwind in 38:3b and 47b. By citing these quotations from Yahweh's speeches, Job is making it quite explicit that he is responding formally to the challenge of Yahweh as his adversary. Job's response is a public confession that he is indeed, quote-unquote, the one who obscured Yahweh's cosmic design with ignorant accusations, and that he does not possess the wisdom or discernment, binah, which Yahweh challenged him to display. This wisdom or discernment is presumably the governing principle which lies behind Yahweh's primordial design for the cosmos. Job concedes that there are things beyond him, niflaot mimeni, that is, marvels which are beyond human comprehension, in 9:10, 37:5, and 14, and which point to the hidden side of wisdom as the ordering principle of the world, compare 11:6. Thus, Job admits that he does not possess wisdom, but then his concern was not a quest for wisdom, as Eliphaz seemed to assume in 15:7 forward, but for the presence of God in court.
Job wanted to plead his case. And that honestly is fair. I remember being the kid who would ask questions about rules and get so many grown-ups being like, because I said so, shut up, quit making trouble. And I wasn't making trouble. I was asking questions because I'll follow your rules if they're good rules, if they have good reasons. But if you're just being a little dipshit, then no, I'm not following your rules.
On verse 5, Clines writes that it is doubtful that Job has actually seen Yahweh and only heard him speak, and so, quote, my eyes have seen you, end quote, can only be an idiom for a close or authentic encounter. He also notes that Job does not say that he had previously heard about Yahweh, as distinct from now seeing him directly. Though Job says that now, Atah, his eyes have seen Yahweh, it is now also that he has heard Yahweh for the first time. So in effect, the now refers both to the hearing and the seeing. Seeing and hearing in the Hebrew Bible are usually parallel forms of perception and not contrast with one another, as we see in 31, 29, 11, Genesis 24, 30, etc. Clines further writes, quote, Job had uttered the hope in 1927 that he might see God while he still lived. Quote, to behold Eloha while still in my flesh, that is my desire, to see him for myself, to see him with my own eyes, not as a stranger. End quote. At that point, it was very clear that for Job to see God would mean his vindication. He firmly believed that his champion or defending counsel would sooner or later rise last to speak for me, even if it had to be a post-mortem vindication, after Job's skin had been stripped from him in 1926. And then Yahweh would be compelled to acknowledge the right in Job's plea. Now that it is true that Job has seen Yahweh, which is to say, he has witnessed him speaking, we might think that he has attained all his desire. But it has not turned out as Job expected. The new question is, when he saw God, was it his vindicator that he saw? Or was the Yahweh of the speeches not the very same deity that Job had imagined in his worst nightmares as a cosmic bully who cannot be held to account in 9:12-20? Now that he has seen Yahweh for himself, seen him with his own eyes, and heard him deny him the vindication he so craved, he can have no more hope. Sentence by sentence through the divine speeches, his words in 14:19 have come true for him. Quote, as water wears away stone and torrents scour the soil from the land, so you destroy a mortal's hope. On verse 6, Hartley comments, quote, Job abases himself and recants, confessing himself to be no better than the dust and ashes on which he has been sitting. Job has come to be a true assessment of himself before the holy God, as indicated by the similarity of his words to those of Abraham when he interceded for the sparing of Sodom and Gomorrah for the sake of the righteous left in those cities. Quote, behold, I have been bold to speak, though I am but dust and ashes, end quote, in Genesis 18:27. Job both renounces all false pride and concedes that God has been true to justice in allowing him, the noblest sheikh, to be brought so low that he has had to sit outside the city on the ash heap. The term recant, nicham, means to turn from a planned course of action and take up a new course. It implies the strongest resolve to change direction, but not an attitude of remorse. It is affirmative action based on conviction. In recanting, Job surrenders to God the last vestige of his self-righteousness, i.e., he withdraws his avowal of innocence. From now on, he will locate his self-worth in his relationship with Yahweh, not in his own moral behavior or innocence. Thus, Job commits his faith into God's hands, knowing that he can bear any fate, for he has seen Yahweh. On verse 7, Habel comments, quote, ironically, Yahweh does pronounce a verdict on Job's case, but only after Job has witnessed his suit, and then only indirectly through Yahweh's rebuke of the friends. In the prologue, the narrator announced that Job did not sin with his lips or express contempt for Yahweh in 1:22 and 2:10. Now Yahweh's answer announces that Job's bold assertions in the dialogue speeches were likewise free from blame in spite of some rather vitriolic moments, for example 69 forward. The blunt and forthright accusations of Job from the depths of his agony are closer to the truth than the conventional unquestioning pronouncements of the friends. The term rendered truth, nechona, refers to what is correct and consistent with the facts, as we see in Deuteronomy 17:4 and 1 Samuel 23:23. Job's answers correspond with reality. They are devoid of dissembling and flattery, a trait against which Job warned the friends in 23:7-12. Robert W. E. Forrest contends that nechona has the specific connotation of Yahweh's moral and purposeful establishment of the universe. Thus, Job has spoken of, quote, what has been established from the beginning, end quote. The wickedness of this interpretation lies in the fact that it is precisely the marvels of God's cosmic design which Job concedes he does not understand, in verse 3. What Job spoke was the naked truth he outlined in his case before God.
So if you're unjust to me, but you have expertise in making something that I am not familiar with, that means you weren't unjust to me.
And we got a comment from Dara O'Kane, 4236, says, so this story message is everything that happens is good and part of God's plan, but if we don't know how yet, but we don't know how yet because we do not see the full picture.
Yeah, that's the kind of platitude that you would get. And honestly, the more I meditate on it, the more I realize that evolution really is a threat to the religious mind view, because the religious mindset comes with the idea that because things are complex and interwoven, there must be a plan, an external plan. But that's not the way nature works. Nature order rises up from within living things and adapts to the world around it. It's yeah, you find out at the end what the picture turned into, but nobody was painting it.
Any more?
Okay. Yeah, I have more. On verse 8, Clines notes that the number of 7 bulls and 7 rams in atonement for the wrongdoing of the 3 friends is an astonishingly high one. He compares it with the 7 bulls and 7 rams offered for the whole people of Israel on each of the 7 days of Passover in Ezekiel 45:23. We find 3 other instances in the Bible of 7 bulls and 7 rams being sacrificed. In the narrative of Balaam and Balak in Numbers 23:1 and 29, at the installation of the Ark of the Covenant in David's time in 1 Chronicles 15:26, and at the cleansing of the temple in Hezekiah's time in 2 Chronicles 29:21. On all those occasions, the stakes are much higher than they are in the case of Job's friends. Clines writes that we encounter here, quote, the naivety of the folk narrative, end quote, with its large route numbers, but the underlying suggestion is that the friend's error is no mere trivial verbal fault, but a fundamental wrong, which needs the most strenuous sacrificial effort to expunge. He further writes, quote, in the faux naive style of the narrative, though Yahweh knows how he should act, he will need help to behave as he should, so strong as is the impulse to throw over the traces. Only a supplication from his servant, Job, that is, his devoted worshipper, who says all the right things about him, will suffice to hold him back from the improper behavior he contemplates. Samuel E. Ballantyne has rightly observed that Job is praying for God as much as for the friends. Without Job's intercession, the sacrifices of the friends will not in themselves be sufficient to avert his wrath. Yahweh might lose his self-control and do something dreadful to the friends. But he won't, for he knows he will let himself be prevailed upon by Job, and in any case he himself has engineered the friend's supplication to Job for his intercessory prayer. On verse 10, Hartley comments, quote, after Job submitted to Yahweh and faithfully carried out these directives, demonstrating a gracious, forgiving spirit in praying for his comforters, Yahweh restored Job's fortunes. The fundamental spiritual principle that in giving one receives and in forgiving one is forgiven is demonstrated here. The doubling of Job's estate does not mean that he received a bountiful reward for the endurance or undeserved affliction, but rather that Yahweh freely and abundantly blessed him. The blessing proves that Yahweh is a life-giving God, not a capricious deity who takes pleasure in the suffering of those who fear him. In his sovereign design, he may permit a faithful servant to suffer ill fortune for a season, but in due time he will bring total healing. Moreover, the doubling symbolizes Yahweh's full acceptance of Job.
No, that's just huffing on copium.
Heavy copium, absolutely.
On verse 11, Habel comments, quote, Job's repudiation of the ash heap signals Job's return to the normal social routines of life. That return is celebrated with a meal in Job's house. This meal recalls the periodic feasts enjoyed by Job's sons before their unfortunate demise in 1, 5, and 18. There is no reason to dub Job's table companions fair weather friends, even though he berated all his relatives and companions for rejecting him as a man accursed in 1913 through 19. Here, their presence marks a celebration of Job's restoration, which is appropriate as a closure for the narrative plot. Their belated act of consoling and comforting Job is an ironic reminder of those same functions performed without success by Job's friends at the beginning of his period or despair, as we see on 2:11. Job is now approachable like other mortals. He is no longer the isolated hero challenging heaven with his lawsuits. The misfortunes which Job experienced are here identified as all the evil, ra'ah, inflicted by Yahweh. The agency of the Satan is now irrelevant. The evil Job experienced is indeed the evil he acknowledged from Yahweh's hands, as we see in 2:10 and compare 30:26. God does indeed cause the innocent to suffer evil. Such things are part of his cosmic design, quote unquote. As a token of goodwill and restored relationships, Job's acquaintances each give him one piece of money and one gold ring. The keshitah is a weight of silver used in financial transactions, as we see in Genesis 33:19.
So in the end, even God recognizes that Job was innocent. And never answers the questions.
Yeah, and never apologizes either.
No.
And never gives Job an actual reason. Everything that he argues is just assuming your own conclusion. It's question begging.
Yep.
All of it. That's why I say that the question begging fallacy is ubiquitous in all religions.
There's a desire to bring the believer to the point where they would accept anything for the privilege of being able to see God. And this is what's demonstrated in Job's reaction. And this is absolutely something I've heard preached through Christianity. I cannot speak to Judaism on this, but this idea of, becoming so emotionally engaged in this, oh, if I could only see God just once, it wouldn't matter, nothing matters. But it's this, it's really a weird combination of this sort of sadomasochistic self-abnegation and this constant jam tomorrow state where you're always waiting because someday the fulfillment will come. And it never comes, but you're never allowed to admit that because then it won't come when you're dead.
There's a very popular story that we're told that I think it's in the Talmud or a Midrash somewhere. It's about a man called Nahum Ishkamzu. He was called the man of also this, because he would always say this. He would always say something bad would happen, and he would say, "This too is from God. This too is from God. This too is good. This too is good." Even when it was a bad thing, he would say, "This is also a good thing." And like the famous story of where his pure belief was kind of shown to be true or whatever is like there's a story about how he I can't remember exactly. He discovered some he had to pay some tax or something to a Roman governor, and he has his job was to collect tax, and he had this big chest of money to take over to Rome or whatever. And on his way, he stays in an inn, and someone else in the inn or the innkeeper steals all of the money and replaces the money with soil from the inn's courtyard. And then he goes over to the governor the next day, and he's like, "Here is my town's taxes," and he gives them a bunch of soil. And the governor's like mad. What is this? What does this mean? And then obviously there's an angel or Elijah the prophet is there for some reason, and he tells the guy, "Oh, this is probably the soil that Abraham used to defeat the war of the 5 kings or whatever. And so let's test it out." And they take it out. They take it and it works. And then they fill up his chest with gold and send him back home. And on the way back, he goes to the same inn and he's like, "Oh, this is what happened to me, blah blah blah." And the thieves over here, and they're like, "Oh shit, the mud in my back garden is this magic soil." So they go and they take 10 chests to the governor, and he's like, "What is this shit?" And like, it's the same stuff. And they find out that it's not, and they lose the battle, and he kills them.
I got a question on the
lovely story for
translation.
children.
I got a question on the translation. When it said that Job died old and full of years, I think was the version that Lilith read.
Yes.
I'm looking at another version that said Job died old and full of days.
Yeah, I mean the Hebrew is
Same
seva
shit.
yamim. Yamim it literally means days, but like the thing is, seva I think in the connotation like is not saturation. No, it's like what is the opposite of being hungry?
Content.
Contempt. So yeah, it means seva. I mean,
Or
like
satiated is
content
what
of
you're probably
days.
thinking of.
Satiated in days, yeah.
Yeah,
But like it basically means to be content, you know.
Yeah, he lived a good, long, full life, and was
Habel translates sated with days.
Yeah.
Yeah, once he
Yeah,
realized
JPS
that children were disposable, it was all good.
well
He got the
replaceable.
upgrades, people.
Yeah, it sounds like God was going through kind of a late stage capitalism, make them too easily breakable, and just replace them. So more consumption. Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have a neighbor who's 92. She was literally a child in Nazi Germany, and she wonders sometimes, like, why am I still here? And I'm like, don't go anywhere. I love you, and I want you to teach me certain things like knitting and stuff. But also, I get it. Like, she's 92, and she's seeing things come back around that she didn't want to see again. So
Yeah.
I get why she's like, I don't know that I want to be here for this sequel. This is not the sequel I wanted to see. I did not enjoy it the first time. I do not enjoy it now. It was not good.
All right. So what are we moving to from here? 'Cause
Wait,
I know-
I have more.
Oh God, are there Christians?
No, I have more comments left. I have 9 pages.
Okay.
Where was I? I was in.
Oh, okay. We thought we'd read
in 12.
Did the last verse, but you had
No. I'm verse 12. So you confused me.
yeah, almost.
Okay. On verse 12, Clines argues that the doubling of Job's possessions is critical for the narrative of the book. Job's fundamental complaint was that he had been unjustly treated in being deprived of his possessions and his good name. Readers who might not follow the doctrine of retribution as it was taught in Job's world could also not be able to accept the initial act of Yahweh's seizure of Job's possessions as justifiable. Yahweh doesn't say anything about the injustice of it, or that he is attempting to compensate for it, and the narrative gives no explicit hint of the huge significance of the doubling of Job's wealth. He writes, however, that it makes a difference to the reading of the book if we know that at the end of the day, the wrong done in Job in chapter 1 is righted, even if it is not explicitly stated, even if there's no apology, even though Job's dead children cannot be replaced by his new family. He writes, quote, though the narrator has just now reminded us in verse 11 that the harm Job suffered was indeed Yahweh's responsibility, Yahweh does not acknowledge in so many words that a wrong was done to Job, but his doubling of Job's possessions says it all, end quote.
That was part of the law that if you took from someone unjustly, you had to pay them back and then some. But still, kids, dude, you're kids.
On verse 13, 7 sons. Hebrew for 7 is shiva'ana. The usual word for 7 masculine is shiv'a, and shiva'ana occurs only here. This had led some commentators to take shiv'ana as having a special meaning here. Several traditionals like Rashi, Kara, and Rashbam understood shiv'ana as twice 7, just like shevu'aim in Leviticus 12:5 means 2 weeks. Likewise, Targum reads 14. This reading is followed by Ehrlich, Dorm, and Beer, who argue that shiv'ana is a mixed form with shiv'a and a dual form shiv'an, twice 7 or 14. Clines notes that some took shiv'ana as a corruption of shiv'am, sevenfold, i.e. sheva with the adverbial ending mem. The issue, however, is that the word for 3, shalosh, does not appear in a similar form. Habel notes that Sarna claimed that it was an archaism related to an earlier Ugaritic form, a reading favored by Hartley. Kimchi wrote that these were his original sons and daughters, but Yahweh made them more beautiful. Several Hebrew manuscripts read Shiv'ah, 7, and this reading is adopted by most commentators.
Is there idea that Shivana is a double portion of 7?
I just said that.
Oh, you did say that. Okay. I was
Oh my god.
just checking.
Kinetic 44 IDK says, and this might be
No, I think IDK is, I don't know, in the beginning of the message.
Yeah. So Tomer and Lawrence, maybe you take this one. This is what this commentary is. I don't know what this commentary is, but it's an exercise in harmonization, not critical scholarship. This isn't Yahweh, it's El Shaddai. That's a different Judean God.
I don't know if this is a comment about what we were talking about, because this guy was having a conversation with someone else in the chat about that El and Yahweh are two different gods, and this is an older book. So
it was a response to Tomer's commentary, and their argument is that Job predates Yahweh.
Well, I mean, that's obviously false, considering that Job literally has Persian loanwords. It's not possible that it predates Yahweh.
Yeah.
Because predate Yahweh. Maybe some form of the character that we've mentioned. There appears to be an ancient character that they're writing about. But yeah.
I mean, I'm not certain on that one, but what I am sure is that Yahweh was very much already
by the time we get to the canonization,
by the point we get to this.
Yeah, by the time we get to the formation of the Hebrew Bible, El and Yahweh were sealed together like this.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, yes, there are some remnants in the text that show us, like, that they were separate entities, but the people who are put this into writing, in the form that we're familiar with, the books that we're familiar with, they weren't aware of that.
Yeah, the people at this time would have thought that.
Yeah, they wouldn't have been aware.
Yeah, and Job being the oldest book in the Bible is debunked.
Yeah, there are still a lot of people that will claim that, and it still goes around a lot. And I think a lot of people may innocently believe that it was the oldest book in the Bible, but like we said, it's stylized in an antiquated way, like Pride and Prejudice and Vampires.
I was wondering if maybe the 140 years thing was the author trying to place the story further back in time when people lived longer in the Bible.
Oh, yeah, that would align with the mythology.
They were like, well, this should have happened somewhere between Noah and Abraham. Yeah.
Right.
So 140 makes kind of sense around that, in that time period not just 140 plus, however old he was already at the beginning of the story.
He already had 7 kids, so or 10 kids. Was it 7 sons and 3 daughters?
Yeah, 7 sons, 3 daughters.
And apparently only 1 wife. I mean, it doesn't say he had other wives. There's only 1 mentioned, but
he might have had multiple concubines.
He did have slaves, so that is certainly a possibility.
Okay, on verse 14, the names for each of Job's daughters probably intends to exemplify their beauty. Yemima is generally compared to Arabic Yamamat, turtle dove, a reading already suggested by Kimchi, as we've seen variation to Targum. They called her this for she was beautiful as the day, Yom. Also Rashi, Kara, and Rashbam. Septuagint and Vulgate basically read day. Ketsi'ah is also the common noun Kasia, as we see in early translations and variation of Targum, for she was precious as Kasia, and Rashi renders sorry?
Is it not? Yeah, Kasia.
Kasia. I hate English so fucking much.
Yeah,
but the English word.
Yeah, the first daughter then moved to America and invented pancake syrup.
Wait a minute.
Cassia. Or Cassia.
It's amusing. Yemima is how you pronounce that?
Cassia.
Yeah.
Jemima?
Yep,
Yemima.
Jemima.
Yeah, J is a yeah sound, and I is.
Oh, Cassia is also, you can say Cassia.
Oh, okay.
Yes. You can say Cassia.
Which one are you talking about? The one that's spelled Kezia?
Ktsia.
Cassia.
I mean, the Hebrew is Katsia, and the apparently the English word does come from Greek, which comes from this Hebrew word. So, yeah, it is connected.
Where
believe-
was I?
I believe the definition given in the concordance is a sweet-smelling savor.
Yes. So what was it? Yes. So Rashi renders, she had a fragrant and perfumed scent like the spice cassia. And according to Psalms 45:8, which is 9, it was one of the perfumes scenting the clothes of the queen. Keren Hapuch is generally taken to mean horn of antinomy. Septuagint renders horn of Amalthea, Vulgate Konustibi, and variant of Targum, she was exceedingly provided with luster of face like the emerald. BDB Dictionary takes puch as black, quote, black mineral powder for increasing brilliance of eyes by darkening edges of lids, end quote. Clines notes that Jezebel uses it in 2 Kings 9:30, and Zion is depicted as a woman enlarging her eyes with antinomy in Jeremiah 4:30. Presumably, the puch was kept in a horn. Clines writes that females are not usually named in the narratives of the Hebrew Bible unless they are going to be important for the plot, so the notation is out of the ordinary. It does not make the daughters prominent, however, but is another sign of the wealth and status of Job. He writes that all three names are, like most female names in Hebrew society, are known as profane names, quote-unquote, i.e. they are taken from objects in the everyday world, rather than encapsulating a short prayer or theological statement, as most male names do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Antimony.
belonging to this god, or
I think antimony is also a name. No.
Antigone, maybe?
Antimony.
Antigone. No, but Antigone is.
It's Antigone. That's the name.
What's Antigone? Oh, like Antigonus, like the Greek name.
No, Antigone.
It's a character.
Yeah, it was a character who had revulsion for impiety and desecration.
Isn't antimony also a name?
No, not of a person. It could be a name
Are you
of
confusing
maybe
Anthony
object.
and Timmy?
No, it's a girl's name, Antimony.
No, Antigone.
I think you're
is
thinking of
girl's name.
Antigone.
Oh, it's a webcomic that I read where the main character's name was Antimony or Antimony. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my
It's-
encyclopedic knowledge of
Yeah,
tragically
no,
online
it's not
fails
I mean, it's like
in this.
it's like Hermione, right? It's like, oh, it's actually a girl's name. I thought it was made up for this story.
Hmm.
You know. Yeah.
Okay. On verse 15, Habel, is that the, no, that's not a final comment. On verse 15, Habel writes that by giving his daughters an inheritance with their brothers, Job demonstrates that he continued a policy of justice and equity in his life, which went beyond the normal practice of the ancient world, as we see in chapter 31. He notes that in Israel, a daughter would only inherit the property of her father if there was no male heir, seen in Numbers 27, 1-8. Although nachala generally means inheritance, i.e. that it is passed on to descendants after one's death, it is strange that Job gives his daughters an inheritance, and then going on to live for another 140 years. Clines notes that the Testament of Job has him making the assignment of the inheritance 3 days before his death, omitting the note about Job's 140 years. Joseph Fleischmann has suggested that the inheritance was more properly a dowry, and that the land given would not really have belonged to the daughters, but only to their heirs. However, since the inheritance is said to be among their brothers, this makes the interpretation unlikely. Sarna has seen the inheritance of the daughters among the sons to be an old epic motif. Clines further writes, quote, Job's daughters are named, his sons are not, and are given an inheritance along with their brothers. These narrative traits have suggested to some readers that part of the rehabilitation of Job is a recovery from his former patriarchal mindset, with the consequent empowerment of the women in his family, according to Joan Chittister. Chittister. Yeah, Joe and Chittister. But we should not forget that Job's wife, who will by now have endured 20 pregnancies, does not rate a mention in the narrative, and that the daughters are not given an inheritance along with their brothers because of the obvious justice of such a settlement, but solely because of their beauty. William S. Morrow has pointed to the thick ambivalence here, one that reminds us yet again of the false naivety of the prologue to the book. In the world of the text, Job's action arises from no proto-feminist impulse. It is no more than a signal of his delight in his restored family. It is an exceptional and unconventional act to make daughters inherit, but we have come to know Job as a man who does nothing but by halves. Already in the prologue, his excessive scrupulosity with sacrifices showed him to be something of an obsessive. I'm tired. I have a stuffy nose and I'm tired. And finally, where was I? 16 and 17. Job is said to have lived for 140 years, which is double the normal lifespan of 70 years, as we see in Psalms 90:10. Septuagint has him living for 170 years and adds that in total he lived for 248 years, implying that Job was 78 when his trials fell upon him. Hartley notes that D. Christensen pointed out that the number of 140 played a significant role in the number schemes of Genesis. Abraham was 140 years old when his son Isaac married, and Jacob was 140 years old when he returned to Canaan. Hartley writes that by comparing Job to Abraham, he becomes, quote, of the same vintage as the patriarchs and their forerunners, worships the same God, and represents the same caliber of righteous hero, end quote. Job is said to see 4 generations of sons and grandsons. Clines notes that several commentators take grandchildren as descendants in general. However, if Job lived for 140 years, he might well expect to see 5 or 6 generations of his descendants. Fogel suggested that the 4 generations are to be counted as his own generation, the generation of his first family, who died, and 2 generations of his new family. And Clines writes, quote, we were not expecting to be reminded of the dead children of the first chapter at the very end of the book, when all seems to be going so well for Job. And in a way, we are not reminded, for the author says not a word about them. Yet such is the way of this subtle writer, that if we linger a moment over the wording, the 4 generations may suggest that the dead children must not be forgotten, and even perhaps that nothing will compensate for their loss.
So he was 78 when he
According to Septuagint.
Right. He was 78 when he cranked out another generation of kids and then still had grandchildren bouncing on his knee.
Yep.
Sure. Like everything else in this book and the story.
Much real, very believe.
Wait, where the Septuagint says how old he was at the beginning of the story?
No, it says that he has lived for 148. He said he had lived for 170 years, and that's that in total he lived for 248 years.
But how do they know the total?
They said it.
Oh, the Septuagint says 170
Yes,
and a total of... I see.
Yes. My God.
I see, that's interesting.
I said it right at the end that he was full of days.
Yeah.
Or full of years.
How many...
Yeah, it reads here. Now Job lived for after his calamity 170 years, and all the years he lived were 248 years.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Right.
What?
What?
Does 4 generations fit better into 140 or 170? I don't know.
Either way,
I don't know.
I suppose this is definitely supposed to be set back in the day, you know.
Yeah, and we can just change the numbers because it's only math.
Well, I mean, God has always been a bit wishy-washy with math. Yeah.
And as Jim Bob says, math isn't science.
No.
Oh, sorry, isn't scientific.
Right. Scientific. I mean, clearly, this is the argument that, it's part of this ancient time when people lived longer. I could see Job being considered a pre-Diluvian, pre-flood character. And I mean, that could even give a justification for naming his daughters if you made them the wives of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Which, again, it's not explicit anywhere. That's just the kind of connection that I could see someone making for the lulls.
Good. So
yes,
you have any
so-
more?
Christians, yes.
Yes.
So, according to the fathers, Job finally obtains justification from God when he openly recognizes God's omniscience and control over every event in human life, according to Olympiodorus, and shows his sincere humility, according to Gregory, and the fullest repentance, according to Chrysostom. A person asks a question in order to be able to learn that of which he is ignorant. For a person to question God is to acknowledge that he is ignorant in his sight, according to Gregory. It is evident that the fathers see in Job an anticipation of the fundamental virtues of Christian life. Job had not been delivered yet from his trial when he repented, but still was in the midst of his torments when he spoke so. Job now becomes priest while the visitors bring offerings. He had made sacrifices for his children. Now he makes them for his friends. One who accuses the righteous will have to expiate a serious fault, according to Chrysostom. Also, in verses 7 through 10, the main issue is the contrast between the figure of Job and that of his friends. Job represents the righteous in full possession of the knowledge and comprehension that is conceded by God to human beings, while his friends appear to have an imperfect knowledge and comprehension due to their pride and hypocrisy. It is evident that the fathers see in this contrast a foreshadowing of the arguments and controversies between the Christian, the Jews, and the Gentiles, according to Gregory and Chrysostom. And finally, the final part of Job 42 is mostly interpreted by the fathers in a prophetic sense. They read in the last events of Job's life a foreshadowing of the future church of Christ and the beauty of those who are elected in Christ, according to Philip and Gregory. It is said that Job lived before Moses, according to Ishodad. In addition to prefigurative references, the fathers believe that the incidents reported in Job's story were actual events of history, but hoped that the story's meaning would also happen mystically, according to Gregory, Chrysostom, Ephraim, and Ishodad. In reporting the years of Job's life, the 7 years of his temptation were not counted, since they appear to belong to a period of death more than life, according to Ephraim. That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
And what book are we moving to after this?
Psalms.
That is the question. Fuck.
Psalms.
Have we come up
Yes.
with a way to handle Psalms?
For me, I
Plus-
think so. For me, I think so.
Yes, I think that we'll go over. I mean, I know what I'll be doing, and I will mostly be covering like anything that like just interesting mythological stuff, I guess.
Mhm.
A lot of this is kind of repetitive. It just talks about how great God is, and they're just sucking his dick. So that stuff, I'm just putting in the category of self-explanatory. Like, okay, we get it. No need to dwell on it. So for that stuff, I won't even be paying attention to. But if it's
Will we
historically
read through them
significant
though
or-
quickly? Just be
well,
like, yes.
we have to read through all of them.
We have
I
to read
won't-
through all of them.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we will speed run and not do commentary deeply on all of them because a lot of them
No.
are very.
I'll basically try to do an overview about the genre, the dating,
Mhm.
possibly other interesting things, and if in the titles there's sometimes like titles given for the Psalms like a Shikayo and a Sheminith, etc. So I'll do that as well. But for the more, I'll probably write more extensive commentary on the more important Psalms, quote unquote. But like I don't really know what are the important Psalms, so basically just taking the words of like Discord at this point.
Well, am I understanding that in Hebrew, this is in verse? I mean, literal verse, so that it rhymes.
Not really rhyming necessarily.
Sometimes not.
Depends on the psalm, but they're
Okay.
quite easy to sing, so there must be some sort of rhythm to
Yeah, a
it.
structural rhythm to it, not necessarily rhyming, or I don't know.
See, that's what I was
Hebrew-
thinking. Tomer's got his guitar.
Oh, yeah. So no, I'm not going to
We
sing
have
the
told him.
Psalms.
We've told him so many times that he should sing them, and he just
I'm not
refuses to.
singing them.
So there's a lot. There's a lot of them that have tunes already, and there's actually interesting. There's one of the traditions that religious Jewish people do is that they say a psalm every day that corresponds to their birthday. So like 1 year more. So like if you're 17, you would say Psalm 18 and so on. Feel bad for anyone who lives to 114, but or is it 118? Yeah,
118. Yeah, Psalm 119 is the longest book in the fucking Bible, and it's all about how wonderful God's law is.
Yeah, it's very boring. And the Chabad movement kind of started this thing where, kind of like as a birthday present to the Rebbe, to Menachem Schneerson, they started it like years and years ago. Like when he was, he was still alive. It wasn't like, hadn't got to the creepy stage yet. And so every year on his birthday, there were people would be announced like, oh, we've made a song that fits his birthday psalm, and then that would become a thing, because some of them would say one for themselves and one for him, so they made a song for it. So there's actually like a lot of psalms have songs, like tunes that kind of match.
And I obviously Christians use text for the Psalms as the basis of many different
By the
hymns
Rivers
and
of
songs and
Babylon.
worship songs and oh well, that's more opera actually. Well, anyway, but there's lots.
A lot of them are used
of
in daily prayers as well. Like a lot of Jewish prayers have like a section of psalms, which are all about like, they're literally called Hallel. They're literally like a praising God. Like hallelujah means praise Yahweh, right?
Oh Lord, you're so big. We're all really impressed down here, I can tell you.
Peter, that's not my SoundCloud. This is a new song that I released this Sunday.
Well, it's on SoundCloud, isn't it?
It is on SoundCloud, but
if you want to hear,
to say,
if you want to hear Tomo's dulcet tones, join the Discord and look in the music stuff.
Yeah, I'm planning to release. I'm planning to release an album with songs that I didn't have the time to really record, but I don't really care. I just want to release them and not just shelve them indefinitely.
You want to get it out. I get it.
I want to get it out. Do it like plainly as possible.
Also, the moment Isaac said a psalm a day, I thought of the saying, a psalm a day keeps book learning away. Or something like that.
I mean, some of the boring ones could probably put you to sleep, so they have some.
Well, I think we're going to get through this really quickly because, I mean, we could just each choose a psalm, and most of them are short. Most of them. I don't know what we're going to do when we get to 119, but I mean, I can read 1, Lilith read 2, Isaac read 3, and Lawrence, and we just do it all like that, and then we don't need commentary, do we? Just run through it.
No, we can like have each make one tiny little comment.
Well, I've been holding back reading, so that for Psalms I could like speed read some of them.
I'm getting so fucked up one night for Psalms. Oh Jesus!
Honey. Stop attempting to give yourself a book concussion. It doesn't help.
I want a book concussion at this point. I'm almost a master. Okay.
Tomer, are you ready? Tomer, are you ready for this Saturday? We're gonna do the first day of the Book of Psalms.
This Saturday? I don't know. I'm
gonna do the entire Yom Rishon.
Can I drink weed on that show?
I guess.
How many psalms do you think we could do?
I don't know. I need to finish some of the commentaries first.
And we could do them in different voices.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes. Wait, because we're not going to do full commentaries on every psalm. We'll be here for the rest of our lives. Our combined lifespan would not be enough time to do full commentaries on every psalm. most of them are generic copy paste worship songs. We'll focus on the interesting ones when they pop up, but we'll just speed run it.
I mean, some of the early ones are more interesting, like commentary wise, I think, than some of the later ones, which are just sucking
But
God's dick. So
even some of the later ones, like if you contrast them with some of the earlier ones,
yeah,
you find out very quickly that there was an Elohistic Psalter, where like
Oh, that's
they're
interesting.
essentially the same psalm, but just the name is changed to El.
Maybe Lawrence and Tomer in email can decide how many psalms we can do, or how minimal, or where commentary is really necessary.
Yeah,
We
in
need
email.
Just look at the first 10 psalms, see if any of them are worth commentary, and flag them for us. Okay?
I mean,
all right. In email.
Some of them already.
I'm sure the lovely people at home do not need to hear us debate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think is that
There's absolutely nothing else that needs to be said.
Well, obviously, everyone should join the Discord, especially if you want to argue about Bible stuff. Do
or
that.
about the commentaries. Hint, hint. Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, I invited the Muslim guy in the comments to join.
Oh God.
So,
I didn't even know.
So we could explain to him the basics of evolution, like.
Oh, okay, yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'd be down for that too.
Oh, well,
yeah, I
luckily,
think
you're in the Discord, Aaron.
officially.
No, I think no. I mean, Peter has he said he'll email Peter so he can do like a proper.
Okay.
Like, I don't think he needs to. I think he should have some better questions for you rather than things like, how did we get eyesight or something like that.
Yeah, he has said he would email me. So, if you want to have a chat with him too, I'll do my best to make that happen.
Yeah,
in the meantime,
I've been trying to get somebody to be like on camera with me.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. He wants to go on camera on my channel, so maybe we can have him go on camera on your channel as well. In the meantime,
oh my God,
Elira has gifted 50 memberships. Oh no, 20. Sorry, 20.
And 20.
And 20.
So 70. Thank you. Jesus, girl. Thank you.
She did ask if there were plans after we're done with the Bible, and I said, well, that's going to be a couple of years from now, so we don't have any plans yet. And she said by then she would have gifted 100,000 memberships. So I mean, it's not impossible.
Generous.
Thank you, Elira.
We'll do our best, and then
we just
I'm
spread
sure
it out a bit.
we can come up with something else. Maybe we'll start interspersing it with watching funny things and just lighten up a bit here and there, because God, the Bible's depressing sometimes.
But we did the fun we did the fun book already, the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. Behold. Goodbye.
Behold.
Behold indeed.